All right, let's watch some Smite Pro play. Let's do some of that.
Three-fourths of the way back to having his ult. And an entire, kind of an item and a half behind in jungle. That's the scariest thing, right? The levels are one thing, and they're horrifying. Eats finally found a camp to farm in the jungle. But itemization-wise, it's just a nothing burger. One of the things that makes Asano so good is once those items get online and your scaling begins to take effect, and it's just not there. And again, I don't want to seem like I'm focusing in on Eats because nothing is going well. Inferno is nowhere near getting to the level of Jingwei that the butt lovers would require to get back in this game. Raspy has been, not a non-factor as it's some of the most damage coming from the butt lovers, but the ability to stay alive has simply not been there for the Agni. And thankfully not in this trap, but you can go in this trap of, well, maybe I have to spend some gold into survivability, buy a Blinking Abyss, maybe even get a Team Beads, and switch your relic to
Look
an
at how
Aegis to
many
double it
things
up
are
or
at the
something to
bottom
that
of the
effect. Give
screen.
yourself a timeline
God
Aegis.
damn.
But if you do that, you're pushing your damage further and further behind and spending a lot of gold to do it. So there's just so many ridiculous hurdles that the butt lovers have to climb over, and that's all
The
without even
Butt
looking
Lovers is an
at
actual
the big
team name.
picture of the uh-oh territory and looking at the 1v1 on Eats who might fall down. But Karmic, not feeling that ambitious. Oh, mid! Oh! Goes and does get the stun, but doesn't get the damage. And realistically, it's just because I think, I 100% think that if Karmic had the backup of the team there, that's a dive under the Phoenix, no doubt. But the rest of the team is, doing the objective. The Fire Giant, we talked about the fact that they had been able to ignore up to this point. And so far, Karmic does not seem to be too worried. In fact, has Rat Milk here.
So they're on the right side objective while the fight
in the process. So you go one for
is
one,
happening in
which
mid.
heavily favors the Order squad. And it might favor them a
One
little
team's
bit more,
up
but the Fire
24 to
Giant's still
6.
alive on 4, and now you have the rest of the crew coming in. And I like the idea.
60k gold to 47.
The base and stay alive as long and as well as they can. Karmic taking a lot of damage from the Daji. Look, it's still a Daji. A Jingwei. Couple items in, the damage is going to be there. You have to play carefully. Yorm forced into the ult. Little bit of poke. Maybe even an opportunity to re-aggress, but it's Karmic up in the sky who's going to be looking instead for the opportunity. Dunk down, forces Eats to use the beads. Pulls that CC immunity out, pulls the damage in, and pulls the life down into the ground with the help of Tegvir. Aggression around the gate and around the Phoenix, but it's still a 2v4 right now, and I think they're starting to recognize that and fall back. I think a lot of what just went down comes back to an important thing that you mentioned very correctly at the very beginning. Rat Milk dying was so big for butt lovers. I think if Rat Milk lives, there's a world where we're looking at the end of the game just
Rat Milk
because you're able to fight as 5.
is the
you
name
can get a deicide fairly
of
easily.
a
But
player.
without Rat Milk there, you have a lot of that kind of displacement, not necessarily in the literal sense, but what it does to your kind of how your team lines up, right? How you're lining up in formation. With Rat Milk not there, you're able to play a little more loose. The Jingwei can step up more. A lot of CCN happen, but plenty tanky. But Benny being here with Tegvir, Gore sniffing out a fight that could be there. Problem is, I don't feel like the butt lovers want a fight deep in the jungle right now, but Thor's up. Looking for the opportunity. Raspy not being under the tower could be a prime target, but instead, it's going to be down onto the Yorm, forcing the ult. Again, out of the titular player himself.
Dude just had ult. He has to use it again.
Taking a lot of damage in the process. It should be a pickup for BennyQ. Good damage from the ultimate, and now the tick damage is what you're waiting on to see if it can happen for them. Happen himself actually leading the way as the team gets aggressive. Powlow pulled out, looking for 2 chains, trying to pull anybody and everybody in, but instead just has the follow-up damage. And oh my god, the burn! Raspy just deleted, but it's going to be paid for. No, it's not. The survivability.
How did that guy's health bar go from
if you're
25%
Hostile
health from
Takeover.
Mac.
Now you've got the full team squad up on the left side for the Phoenix.
Hostile Takeover can get this easy. If you pick Butt Lover, it's basically GG. Inferno has some damage for this, but it's not looking great. Biggest thing is, Hostile Takeover,
Game
their
is,
health
like,
bars
super
are low.
lopsided,
They've
I
got to
think.
back up a bit. Jingwei might even go on the chase. No, has to play it safe.
Yeah, Fire Giant regen only does so much. Karmic going up to the sky. Might just come back down, though, with assistance from the team. No, falls back and plays it safe, but it doesn't matter. They still get one kill, and that might be the opener for the team to come back in. You need a reset. At least Karmic is going for it. And it seems like, despite nobody wanting to, it felt like all 5 of them were on the verge of going back in. They will instead fall back. Maybe it ends up just being a bait. The Yormal on cooldown every single time, 0-4 and 1, an unfortunate spot to be in because this has just been non-stop CC City.
That person's
And it
dead.
seems like that's going to be something that Raspy learns the hard way over here. The Agni gets taken down, picked off by himself.
This is kind of the worst case scenario for the Butt Lovers, to say the least. They're going to have 4 alive for the defense, but the defense will kind of be in shambles. A lot of ultimates on cooldown. The fight starts early. Inferno's almost dead.
You trade out support for support, but you're going to lose a little bit more because Inferno, like you said, almost dead, now actually dead. But you traded out duo for duo. Eats goes down, though, and that might be
4 for 3.
the final opener. Up into the sky goes Karmic, and they're just looking for a little bit more. Going instead for the Phoenix, I admire it, but has the hammer, has the wall, needs to save Benikyo's line, but can't get it in time, and that's a huge kill for Butt Lover. 3 in this fight from 0-4 to 3-4, and keeps it going. Oh, 42 kills on the board, 24 minutes into the game. Mid-Phoenix will stay standing as Karmic, last one alive on Hostile Takeover, finally falls back and gives me a moment to catch my breath.
Yeah, you've earned it on this one, and it will be a moment before Hostile Takeover rush back into the base.
Literally.
One thing that they're not going to do, I feel pretty confident saying, is they're not going to rush right back to the Phoenix, not make that mistake. They might put some pressure mid-Phoenix while they wait for Fire Giant to respawn, but the Gold Fury just turned over to Ancient Fury. Fire Giant will respawn soon. You see no wards on the map for the most part. Hostile Takeover doesn't have any in pocket, but I'd imagine at some point we'll see it back there, establish some vision and some presence at the fire. You can definitely work for some splits there too, because it's hard for the Butt Lovers to fight in, because they still are trying to farm, by the way. They're still looking to finish off some of their earliest items. Meanwhile, Hostile Takeover, some of them are approaching late game finished builds. Eats, and I feel bad calling attention to it, Eats 4 levels down on Rat Milk, whose eyes on to the Charon. Karmic 2!
Double dunk,
That's
double
diabolical.
spin, and now the
Thor
follow-up
goes in
hammer
and
damage
then
is good. Good peel.
cuts them
so far
off
for
with the
Charon,
two
to keep
ability.
Things pushed back. There's only so much you can do right now. The objective is survive. They are playing the
What
final
I don't
mission
think you
of
can
Halo
do
Reach.
anything
Just
about that.
keep alive long enough to turn something
Can't stop
around.
Thor from going up in
Trying
the
to overcome
sky,
a
and then you
massive
can't
build
stop
deficit,
him
massive
from
experience
slamming on
deficit,
you.
as you have mentioned.
Then you can't
And a
stop the
little
2
bit more
ability.
If this Fire Giant goes the way of Hostile Takeover, might be the territory. And I can ask you this. If it is the territory,
Seems,
Pyromancer, I don't know if you fight for it,
overpowered.
though they are stepping up. Fire Giant, at this point, with this state of the game, it feels like you almost have to be present
Yeah.
for it. If you're
I feel like it's a you have to be present for it, but it's also a why not at this point. Hang on, there's the CC,
Oh,
the combos
no.
are there again!
And the damage is just too much. Jungle support gone, and they try to, and successfully, burn Rat Milk in response, but it's cost them damn near everything. All it takes now is the Yorm to come back out, and once he's locked down,
We're going worm
looking
hunting, baby!
at the Dia side. One Phoenix about to respawn, but with no one left to defend for 20 uncontested seconds. A full Dia side, and the run into the Titan room. Karmic already going in to try and get it done. Has the minions to maybe work with. Or needs some help from somebody. Weakened Phoenix will be the target. As they come to set
He's
this
like,
up, I'm
guys.
they need to open it up for damage. They will. Eats respawns though. And that might be enough to
Yeah,
thwart
got a
the
little
Titan.
messy.
A little rough, maybe not on the same page, maybe misreading
Oh,
the map,
oh.
and they might even lose Karmic in the process. Hammer, teleport, and a wall. separates Karmic from their first step. 12-0-13. My God, I haven't looked down a little bit.
So I was just gonna say, if Eats
These
had
guys are a
managed
little-
to kill the 12 and
a little
04,
over,
we might have seen that dude jump from level 16
overzealous.
to 20. Like the amount of shutdown reward that would have been there for poor Eats would have been eaten good. But what's crazy, so Hostile Takeover had left Phoenix low, and after it respawned, they had wave pressure, as you could see, because there was already the fire minions there. I think Benny thought the rest of the team was going to go straight to the left Phoenix, so he tried to dash through mid to wait in the throne room on Titan. But maybe the rest of the team thought it would be the inverse, where Benny would go make sure the left Phoenix died, and that's how it got messy. Ultimately, not the worst thing, obviously. You're still up 5 strong. This Fire Giant should be mostly free. Fun items for Happen. He's having fun. This is where you end. You get this, you group up, you go for it, you have your way in, you have pushers coming from left and right. Left the most important, obviously, in this instant. Karmic's going up, looking like Karmic's calling game.
Yeah, I mean, it might be the target. Raspy was not the target. Instead, it's over here on the left, and it's Inferno. Poor Inferno, who has not gotten to play this game. 0-5-3 on the Jingwei. But they do have Karmic locked down, and they do finally shut down this Thor. But again, at what cost? You have your team. Full Fire Giant actually playing a little slower overall. Maybe
Double
because
ADC
Karmic has
solo.
been leading the way. Like you said, double ADC solo. They have the ability to push. They take a lot of damage, though, on Benny Q, who goes up into the sky. Now, you have to turn this around. The damage is good. The shell is okay. But can you escape the Jormungandr, who's chasing you down? You get rid of Eats in the process. You have the double ADC burning through the tank, who wanted to kill off your mid laner, and instead, you are picking them up one by one. And like you said, triple for one. Rat Milk removed from the equation, but you still got to... Oh my God, finally! Inferno! He hadn't been able to do anything this game, and finally is able to get the kill and get something on the board and maybe save this game. At least for a little bit.
Tekvir couldn't dagger because of the knock-up from the wind gust. So Tekvir thought, and I thought too, by the way, that this was going to be the easiest highlight reel dagger into Penta. But one simple little wind gust. And remember, Tekvir chose to go Aegis, not beads. So there was nothing the Medusa could do. Now the 2v2, and it's looking good to be Inferno. Benny dead.
And now the chase is on. You should be able to dunk somebody here. Speaking of dunk, Karmic comes in and is looking to turn this around to shut down Inferno. But Inferno is looking to do to them what they were hoping to take down onto this Jingwei. The stun is going to make you fall back. And that is an absolutely insane run of events. What was and felt like a surefire over game in favor of Hostile Takeover. I'm not going to call it even, by any means, because there's still 13,000 gold separating these, and you can see it in the items. But experience, that 16 to 20 gap between Eats and Rat Milk has been closed up, and sure enough, soon we will be seeing a level 20 Susano, level 20s across the board in the game. And that will even out a lot more than really would meet the eye.
The biggest issue still for butt lovers is the itemization that's online, because while usually the later you get in a game, you'll hear a lot of commentators and pro players say that gold starts to matter less. And while that's true, the kind of exception is when one of the teams is still yet to complete builds, because you can see Hostile Takeovers finishing a lot of final items. Oath Sworn coming online, Karmic gets the wall, but can't set up too much yet. Karmic might be in trouble.
I mean, you're playing maybe too aggressively right now. Karmic has gone in several times, but they get rid of Inferno, and that was the problem, child. So now without Inferno around, they'll see what else they can knock down. They've got low health bar forced down, and the Charon is going to be able to hop into the boat and get away, but not far enough. Benny Q from the top ropes drops that one down and gets the damage. But the Phoenix is a respawn, so you have something else to worry about now. The Palau comes out, forces some beads and CC immunity. Raspy is taking a ton of damage. Karmic is just a one-man army, but will be taken down for the second time this game while the team focuses on the mid-Phoenix. 3v4. Fire Giant on 1 for 20 seconds, so take with that what you will. Jormungandr goes in to create some separation. I mean, it is the question, how confident are you feeling right now to get this Phoenix? Should be pretty good because it's, you know, not doing anything on its own after that Fury. But it is a fallback without Karmic here, not playing too aggressive. And we're in for more. 32 minutes in, and the game keeps marching.
So with EFG being kind of the next topic, we have a little bit till Fire. Fire's off everything. The gold charts are in hell for Butt Lovers fans everywhere. T-shirts are coming off. They're being switched to Hostile Takeover fandom.
Add it to the Smite Prime store, okay?
Shirts are out. My name is John Smite Prime, and I love butts. I can see Jithan's wearing the T-shirt now. I feel like your biggest play here, if you're I mean, obviously you're gonna Hail Mary because kind of what other choice do you have? The key is not letting Hostile Takeover start the fight on their terms. You almost kind of want to make them start the fire and then take the fight there on your own terms at least, so you can dictate how it starts, because every fight is the Karmic show but getting things off. I almost would love a team in tier, a team attempt to throw the ball all the way down the field. Instead, Karmic could be caught.
You've got ults in a good position. Like you said, Karmic could be caught alone on the side. Might also realistically be controlling things, considering what we've seen from Karmic. But what was 12-0 and 13 has turned into 12-2 and 15, so not too much.
I found out who was
over
caught.
the last few minutes. But there's going to be the Yorm. Finally burned down. It took a little while, and now it's Eats. It's domino effect overall. Raspy in a little bit of trouble. Karmic trying to create these moments for the team, and with a little bit of help should be able to keep them going. Finds Inferno, and it's Raspy. Last man standing. Not much to say about it. Who needs the enhanced fire giant? You got rid of 2 Phoenixes already, and now you just need someone who can take the brunt of the damage. Marching forward, low health bars, 34 minutes into the game with 47 kills under their belt, taking game 1. It's Hostile Takeover.
Hostile Takeover really knew how they wanted to play this game from the get-go, from the draft, right? They got, even though I still stand by Butt Lovers having a great draft and taking away things that they felt like they could just control instead of give it away for free, Hostile Takeover didn't really care. They got to play the exact game they wanted. They got Benny on the Newt, which, I mean, seems obvious was the goal. Thank goodness for Butt Lovers, it's gone now, thanks to Vault Bans. But they got the Thor, and I loved how they played around the Thor for the majority of the game. It did kind of fall off by the end. I think a lot of that was, I hate to say Karmic kind of taking his foot off the gas, but I don't think he was trying to get the perfect score on drifts around the corner anymore, you know? He was in late game mode, he was on autopilot a little bit. But when they needed to lock in, of course, Hostile Takeover did. And kind of throughout the game, it was the same story, where Karmic would get these early rotations that we expected to see being on the Thor and being able to play that way. The rest of the team balanced around it. Whatever attention Karmic would draw, we would just kill it elsewhere if we're Hostile Takeover. That's our play. And it worked. At the end of the game, Butt Lovers were able to find a lot of ways back in. Inferno played pretty well against the rope. Same thing for the Charon. There was that big triple kill for Butt Lover on the defense that kept the game alive the first time. And I think that was massive, of course. But the biggest problem to me is ultimately the game got too out of hand to be able to ever stand on equal footing. Even when you did, when you killed everybody, when you had deicides, when Inferno made their hero play, got the dagger away from Tegvir, you still were not on even footing. And that's how Hostile Takeover took over game 1.
It did take some time, though. I think the biggest thing, outside of the very opening, it was very similar to a game we saw earlier where you know, Butt Lovers get a couple kills, start things up pretty darn good against Hostile Takeovers, but eventually it came down to those Phoenix defenses. That's where they were holding on to, and like you said, maybe a little bit of, I'm going to call them goofy dives, right? Some choices that came out from whether it was Karmic or any of these teams going, any of the players, I should say, going a little too deep, and Inferno just smacking them with a ton of damage, but there is eventually a breaking point, and that lead and the play from Hostile Takeover is enough to get them there. Of course, 12-2 and 19, very easy to look at for Karmic, but 13-3 and 10, 12-4 and 18. It seems like there was a very big core in the middle that was causing a lot of trouble. Rat Milk with 12 assists, 9 kills, and of course the 21 assists that Happen was able to put up. The team was just playing together. They were playing well. 0 wards from Tegvir, which is impressive. And then again, you only got 1 coming from the other side on the Susanoo. So realistically, I guess there's balance in the world somewhere in that. It just shows, though, how good this team is, and
Yeah.
maybe shows a little bit from Butt Lovers in that they are able to dig their heels in and push back for so long. That game ends around 34 minutes when it felt like it was going to end at 23. So the fact that it ends up going, another 12 or 11 is really, really impressive from them. We'll have to see what they do, like you said, with vault bans and a lot more to talk about on the other end of this quick break.
Stop rolling. Stop rolling. Stick to the black. No improv, no theatrics. These players are doing whatever they want all the time. We need to control this.
I knew you, but I didn't know your name.
Come on! He's not even listening to me.
5 minutes. Going down to 4. About 3. You had 1.
I don't think that's a good idea.
And now the hotel deal highlights from Trivago. Jurgen, this couple just saved over $100 a night on Trivago.
They got their tactics right.
Let's see it again. This hotel normally costs $285 a night. And boom, $170.
Trivago just makes it look easy. World class.
Score your own deal on Trivago when you compare hotel prices and save up to 40%.
That's what winning looks like.
Hotel Trivago.
UFC at the White House Sunday, June 14th, only on Paramount+.
People doubted me all the way, telling me I was all hype. They just mad that I'm him and they gotta deal with it. If you don't like it, you can suck.
One of the things that makes me most proud is I did things Lando's way.
I don't need everyone out there to like me. I like being different.
Welcome back, everyone, to the finals here in week 2 of the June circuit of Smite Prime. My name is Gormizer. Well, that's not my legal name. That's not what's on my documentation, but that's what you know me as, and that's what matters. I've got Malum here, who's gonna keep a straight face with me as we continue to talk very professionally about the team's hostile
We'll get to that later.
takeovers, hostile takeover, and of course, professionally about the other team, Butt Lovers, that they are playing. And for now, we can talk about the Vault Band. So once a god is played in the set, they are no longer played. As an example, Benny Q just played Newt. Newt can no longer be picked. They are gone from the game. All 10 gods from the last match, or from the last game, are officially out. And so you've got 6 bans, plus technically 10 in that those are gone, and then you pick whatever's left. That's good for your squad to keep on moving. Malum, it was a game that was controlled mostly by Hostile Takeover. A good last defense several times from Butt Lovers, but eventually it just... Where and why? I gotta ask before we're gonna get into picks and bans here. While they start banning things, I can ask where and why.
It's a little guy, but
the more you show it, the less.
My sister-in-law got it for me. First of all, he's squishy.
So it's like a little stress for when you hate little guys. You can just
his head dangles, but most importantly, it makes me think of the Butt Lovers.
Actual babies' heads can't be supported.
Yeah, this is basically their mascot. But last game had me stressing. I was breaking him apart. I figured he could at least join for the cast.
What I like is that because you have the blur for your background, that there's a certain point. It just
I know.
Yeah, not just vanishes, but like it's like proper censorship to make sure.
There we go.
Picks and bans, game 2 here. Hostile Takeover still on the second pick side, but Lovers with the first pick. Ban out the Ardio up front. Their little mascot hanging out with Malum. And you can see down there the Vault Band, Omni, Cerberus, Jingwei, Thor, Yorm, Newt, Sisano, Medusa, Charon, and Daji all off the board as well. So 16 gods that are going to be missing from this game at minimum. We'll have to see where they go. Aladdin gets banned. I don't imagine, if they were good enough to ban in the first game when everybody was already available, I don't imagine the bans changed too much in game 2.
I do like the Hou-Yi, especially because I feel like ADC is going to be pretty interesting this game. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Neath get a lot of priority. Aside from the Neath, I wonder where we go. I feel like Izanami's been seeing some play that's not completely out of the table. Could be a little bit on the sneaky. And On Her is always somebody I feel like players love to grab in game 2s of Vault bans.
Yeah.
You think of it early, you're like, oh, I can take it, look for some 1v1s, try to get some pressure out in duo. It's interesting how much has been taken off the table. One big thing too for junglers, one big thing for the junglers is Eats is still not new to playing competitive Smite, but newer to being kind of full focus Smite Prime. As one of the best characters in the game right now, Aphrodite first lock in, a little bit frightening for the side of Hostile Takeover. But for Eats, I think the jungle pickup is big because Ratmilk has a very strong god pool, but I don't think it's as deep as some of the other top junglers. It's kind of always been an interesting aspect of Ratmilk's game. The Hoon bots is significantly good for Ratmilk. There's always been a very nasty Thanatos. The Aladdin was banned by Hostile Takeover, and while there's still plenty of options, it just makes me wonder the direction we choose to go. And that I find surprising. The Awheel is just not something that I've seen Ratmilk play a ton. It's definitely in the bag, but not a ton. But going with it is the Neath. That makes a lot of sense in my brain. The Aspect Neath right now, you're doing a lot of the same things that most of the good ADCs are wanting to do right now. And Tegveer has already shown today how comfortable he is on it. I'm actually kind of surprised he gets it for free here in game 2. But the Aphrodite just had so much picking power once you committed to banning that Mordred and allowing Hostile Takeover to either ban it or risk you taking it. You kind of had to take it first. You couldn't give it back. The Hostile Takeover for Benny.
And really finding the appropriate balance, right? Where even if she's good, who's banning Neath? It's 2026. We've been in very few metas where a Neath ban is fully warranted.
Your Neath feelings crack me up because they're so complex. I can never tell if you're like the biggest Neath supporter or like Neath's #1 op. You never
Like,
fully reveal your hand.
A little bit of both. I feel like you gotta have a little bit of both. I think she's one of those gods that deserves a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Apollo, Osiris, the second time we get to see Osiris, but Apollo, who I will admit, the last time I got to see him a couple weeks ago when I was watching and we were casting, did not quite hit the way maybe that you would hope from an Apollo, but good rotations with an Aphrodite beside him. You know, you can have some good expectations. It's kind of a TBD pick, but more importantly, his dash doesn't trigger a Wheelish, which is probably one of the bigger deals, and it's answered with a Horus and a Chalk.
So the Horus is exciting because Horus we've known is so good. I love the answer to the Apollo too, with the ability to traverse so much of the map. A lot of times Apollo Ultimate, I feel like, is utilized in a way that Horus Ult could be an answer to, because I know we see a lot of split pushing and go across the map, but there is a world where, you know, you're split pushing a tier 2, Horus and his team are kind of maybe in mid lane or closer to fire. They can probably get to you even if you are in duo and make a play, or if they're chasing you out and you decide to Apollo ult, say you have some ward coverage, they could just go where you're thinking of. They could go right to an objective and pull it knowing you've already committed your ult early. So there's a lot of counterplay in a very unique sense to the Apollo. And to your point, Apollo can be weird right now. He's in a really good spot in the meta, but if you kind of fall behind in the lane a little too much early, you can't do the Apollo things he wants to do, it's trouble. I do like him into Neath though. And one of the reasons being, we saw in the last game that Tegvir and Inferno are going to box. They're going to fight. Not a lot of ADCs at this level of play like to really fight in lane. You know, they just kind of play for farm, play for late. Apollo, when he dashes through the wave, can build his Audacity passive. His clear is one of the best right now because you can get to lane, use Audacity, clear the wave pretty fast, and then fight. On that second wave, you can combine using your passive, clearing the wave, then dash through and really bring the fight to the Neath, especially if you can catch her a bit ahead and catch her dash. And I feel like that could be, not just for that particular time frame of the game, but that could be something we see a lot of from Inferno, trying to fight into the Neath, not letting her cast her ultimate for free, or just letting her get that farm online. Because remember, she's going to build slow. We're going to build Transcendence. It's going to take a while to get into it, because we have our attack speed from our passive. But Apollo has a good answer for that. It's going to take a while before the Neath is super built up, and he can just gotta fight her the whole time.
The way that these teams have been playing, it does give me some concern. I feel like Apollo, well, it's survivable, but we kind of said the same thing about the Yorm last game, and we saw how that went, right? I feel like the aggression from Hostile Takeover is something that is worth being worried about. But I'm almost worried that they're too aggressive, if that makes any sense. Like, a Wheelish wants to go in, Horus wants to go in. If you go in and you don't have the backup of Neath, who I have another point I want to make about her in a little bit, but it does feel like you could almost overcommit pretty. Yeah, I could tell, hey, as someone who has had to play a lot with and watch over a lot of Neath gameplay, I know a lot about that god, that maybe some against my will. Which actually does bring me the not just capabilities of being maybe too aggressive, but the other balancing point of it, which is, this could still be a Neath that, like, you could pivot her mid pretty easily. Like, as far as her kit goes, she's a physical mage most of the time. Like, a lot of what you care about usually is her abilities, not her autos. You can still build the autos, you can still kind of lean into that, but like that, the style of gameplay matches a lot of what like mid laners want. Then again, Benny Q also like weird picks. Maybe this Chalk is his. Who knows?
Yeah. That's always a potential. I noticed there's two picks that I'm thinking of for Benny, because obviously you need that magical damage in mid in this moment. I would be surprised if it's Chalk for the reason of the 4 physical here, plus Karmic and Chalk. That is a character Karmic really likes to play, and a character that, weird enough, Karmic kind of plays similar to characters that have more mobility. Karmic loves rotating early on Chalk. There's a lot of characters where Karmic parks it. Chalk is not one of those. Him and Cherry were the two innovators of the Helm of Darkness tech back in the olden days of Smite 2, and he still kind of plays Chalk similar. But where I think Benny could go is, there's 2 picks I'm thinking of. You know, there's always a world he could pick a 3rd pick that's not on the top of my brain. The Hecate and the Cabrakan both are really, really strong in mid, and Benny loves those picks. I think that is kind of a key. Cabrakan just brings so much damage. It's kind of ridiculous how much damage he brings in the mid lane, and Benny's been slamming it nonstop. I also think there's a world Hostile Takeover are feeling themselves after game one. Bracken feels like a really good I'm feeling myself character, where Hekate is more of a, all right, fine, we'll win the game kind of lock-in for Benny Q. I guess maybe a third option, I would look at something like a Merlin, potentially. Merlin, another character who's in a surprisingly good, clean spot, and could fill the need of Hostile Takeover of just a lot of magic damage being dumped onto butt lovers. On the other side, though, picking your jungle this late is a little interesting to me from butt lovers. It's nice because the Uwilish being first picked allows you some freedom of not picking yourself a counter matchup. It does eliminate picks like a Hoonbots or things like that you just don't want to torture yourself with. But Eats has a god pool, and I mentioned this before. It's very... I remember it being very hyper carry focused. I'm sure that's changed as the years have gone on. I haven't cast Eats in a long time. But it makes me wonder what we grab, because something like the Kali could be great, not going to feel good into a Wheelish. Something like the Thanatos, Thana can always murk a lobby, but he doesn't always win a game, and you kind of have to win this. Especially given the situation with Hydrogen Bomb. You don't know when the next time you're going to find yourself in a finals is if you're butt lovers.
Yeah, having to find a, like you said, full reset moment where you do have to hunker down, right? You said these picks are very important. This is game 2 of a best-of-3 finals between the two. As you can see down right below us, you see the Vault band. So those gods unable to be played right now, along with the 6 bands on the side, which does take off quite a few notable junglers, but one that we've been seeing a lot of, well, that's not where I was going to go. They lock in something completely different. I was going to talk about the fact that Tsukiyomi has been on the board and has been talked about and played a lot, but who cares about him? We got Fenrir Anubis, a double dog squad.
Yippee-yi-yo!
And
let the dogs out.
So far they've only let the one dog out. Where it's
I
a
swear
TBD.
If they don't lock it in and it's egg
if
on my
it's
face,
not a
I'm
pluralized
pissed.
dogs.
Jiffins, tell them to lock it in.
Available.
Don't give them a choice.
We could have had multiple. Yeah, this is actually the one time that the admin comes in and tells you, no, you've got to play it now. I'm curious to see where they go with this, though. I'm with you on some of the mid picks you had mentioned for Hostile Takeover, because like you need a lot of magic damage and some of that coming out from your squad that is otherwise for physical and feeling maybe a little rough because of it. But it does feel like one of the other things you need is someone who can easily apply some anti-heal. I think that's like one of the biggest things. Like if you can try to deal with, admittedly, it doesn't have to be any form of anti-heal. It could also just be the ability to just burst an Aphrodite. Like if you have that, if you can find someone who does that, that also works. But just somebody to help deal with the healing factor that is going to be coming from the other side. Admittedly, a squishy team as well, so maybe that burst factor is not completely out of the way to think about.
Bracken would be a hilarious pick into the Anubis, by the way. Just hilarious. But maybe the Hekate. I kind of had a feeling, but the idea of Benny Q's Cabrakan running down the Anubis all game, doing 1 million damage, a little bit tougher, obviously, to play into the Anubis because you kind of have to walk at the Anubis. If a wrap hits, you're cooked. If you can't get your stun quick enough, you're cooked. So I understand it if not. The Hekate in particular is great, but instead, ooh,
wow,
the Alpoish pivot. I kind of forgot he was available. He's been banned so much since he's come out, whether it was competitively or if he was not competitively banned just by the teams. The fact he could fall to last pick feels like an oopsie on everybody, especially Gore, especially because we have now picked Aphrodite and been countered by an Alpoish. So,
yeah,
the Aphrodite doesn't get to play the video game, and anyone who Aphrodite chooses to kiss doesn't get to play the game. You may as well not use your 3. Just leave the Lovebirds at home. Like, we're good on the Lovebirds. We have an Alpoish. We're already dead.
And worth mentioning, on top of that, while the team healing, I think, exists from butt lovers because of the Aphrodite, although, like you said, maybe TBD when Alpoish gets his way. But
yeah,
Chalk, Horus, Neath all have their own form of self-sustain. Alpoish has a form of self-sustain, although it might not be the one that you really write home about. Like, it does feel like this is a squad that Hostile Takeover, they might not be relying on a healer, but they do have a lot of healing. So I imagine that this is going to be a matchup where, again, damage, burst, the ability to get rid of somebody as quick as possible is huge. And then we start to draw size of ultimates, which always has to come down to it, right? Fenrir, single target. Anubis, if they line up for you, it can be multiple targets, but really it's only going to be one. Osiris can kind of hit multiple, but it's small. Same for Apollo. And Aphrodite's is a get-out-of-jail-free card. Meanwhile, I see single target ultimate, but team fight, right? It feels like the frontline and mage from Hostile Takeover are going to be grouping together incredibly well when we start to see them finally arrive at that after level 5. We'll have to find out, though, as we finally jump into it. Game 2 of the finals here, Butt Lovers and Hostile Takeover. Who will come out on top and who will win this match? Well, it's time for him to duke it out and figure it all out right here, right now. And once again, much like last game, Butt Lovers will be fighting from the bottom to the top on the left side of the UI, and they aren't looking for any funny business as of right now. They're just going to be taking everything as it comes to them. Specifically, going for just generic camps, no crazy starts, no hyper-aggression from anybody.
So, one of the worst parts about Alpwash right now, to play against it, not only does the anti-heal on his third ability just kill you, the amount of things in Smite 2 that heal, and this was a conversation I was having with shoutout Kerberos Musi, the amount of things that heal in Smite 2 is kind of insane. The 300 gold health pots are always ticking. Everyone buys them. They're ticking throughout the entire game. Everything's got random little bits of lifesteal. There's a bunch of items in the game that have little procs of heal. You talked about it for characters. Fenrir has got it in some ways. Anubis has got it in some ways. Obviously, the Aphrodite, when the Lovebirds heal, it's going to be a factor. Alpwash just gets to stun everybody, do bonus damage to everybody throughout this game. It can really become just a nightmare to play into. I think especially the later we go. And you talked about the sustain. That's going to hurt extra bad. Because Alpwash can sustain himself through so much that usually where an Anubis pokes somebody out and buys time for his jungler, Alpwash says, that's cool. Watch me eat this minion. Watch me eat this minion. Watch me eat this minion.
And hey, this other minion? Also that one too. I actually think that, you know, speaking of the minions, not just consuming them if you're Alpwash to be able to sustain your own life, but the other big portion of this is a lot of abilities that are left on the ground. Like, this is not something that gets really thought about too often because there's not really too much reason to mention it, but between the weaves that a Neith is leaving behind and the corpses that are going to be dropped by Benny-Q, there's a lot of, hey, this small ability is now a big AoE and suddenly we're all taking damage that we didn't expect. That can happen and kind of get muddled because there could be so many of them at any point kind of across the map. That is actually going to be, like, in the middle of a team fight, I imagine. Not something you actively think about, but something that could bite you if it's not avoided.
Huh. Bite you, Fenrir. Huh.
Ha, Fenrir.
It's why you're big famous caster Gormizer.
That's, well, never mind. I can't say that's why they pay me the big bucks anymore. Instead, we're going to watch them get aggressive over on the right-hand side, and luckily for Butt Lover, this time it goes a little different than last time. Might not be the same for the duo lane. The shell, like you said, balances it all out, keeps things about as stable as they could be for the Aphrodite and the rest of the squad. It's going to be a Wheelish jumping in over on the right-hand side. That shell gets deleted immediately. That's first blood over the way of Rat Milk, and now looking for a little bit more. Eats is low. Karmic is as well. And I think now with the vision of the Anubis coming over, they're going to play that one safe and careful. Well, okay, I should say safe, maybe not careful, because Karmic plays to the axe, uses some of that self-sustain. In fact, Rat Milk goes back in. Rat Milk is almost able to and does get another kill, but trades out their life for it in the process. Still, a 2-1 slash line. Great start for the jungler.
Yeah, you're very okay with that. Giving Rat Milk the 2 is big. Also, the rotation out from the Anubis is just one of those things that's tough. The Alpwash doesn't really want to rotate in that instance. You don't want to trek all the way over there. Benny hadn't hit level 5 yet, and then get there and put yourself further behind. But now level 6 tied up with it. You have your Wheelish with 2 kills. You can just put the pressure on the Anubis while the ultimate's down. Because sure, there's a beads up, but Raspi's probably going to try to beads a little bit early, if not, or excuse me, try not to beads too early, and instead try to hang on to it, be a little bit greedy with it to try to save it for the Wheelish Gravity Surge. in that case, you can put a lot of pressure on this Anubis now. Your ult's down. All right, get ready to be in a wheelish hell, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of bully central right now, I think, for Rat Milk. Although Karmic might be the one in trouble. Ult used and then picked up by the Fenrir. Not going to make it too far after that, as it is another kill pulled back by Butt Lovers, and specifically there for Eats. Eats, who, I mean, you're going to have to take the lump here, which fell super far behind. I mean, we were talking 4 or 5 level differences at some points in the game last time around. And so far, keeping a good pace. Good to get a kill there. Good root coming out from Tegvir, who's fighting back. Good damage and good backup coming in from Rat Milk. Is able to help at least get one. Might be able to find another because Apollo is off the mark. Survival is the name of the game, and Hostile Takeover are winning it. They not only stay alive, but get kills and pick up 2 against the duo lane of Butt Lovers.
I think the sleep paralysis demon for the Butt Lovers of Rat Milk is coming alive. 3 kills already, all into the pocket of one of the scariest junglers to get ahead early on. Butt Lover taking the fight to the Opwash, but Karmic is here in the rotation.
They have damage. Chase is good. Eats follows. And that lockup is solid. Butt Lover incredibly low, but no, they're not able to get the last hit. Oh my god, I thought that was a fire kill. But instead, it's Rat Milk burned down by Raspy. And a good set. Farm is going to be the name of the game afterward, which we wanted to see from Butt Lovers. And with a couple of kills, they tie it up 4-4, 6 minutes in. And the gold stays even as we come out as a wash.
It's funny that Raspy is kind of becoming Rat Milk's keeper, as there's a lot of focus on the Afro. You see the backflip from the Neath, looking to get closer, but Lovebirds will tick, and the Neath will be all right for now. But that's kind of the thing about this dual lane is going to be scary, too. The Aphrodite is having a tough time, and I noticed the Chronos pendant early, and we're also going Sands of Time. What's funny to me is that we're running this Aphrodite in support. Aphrodite has a build right now that is just so good. I wonder if we're still going to go it. Maybe we're just starting with the Chronos pendant. I don't play enough Aphrodite myself to speak to every in and out, but the build that's been going around that involves the Heartward Charm and a lot of stuff like that, going more tanky and kind of abusing cooldowns with it, that can take a minute to get going from support is what I've learned, and it gets going a little bit faster in mid. But all those points aside, Gold Fury pulled first by Butt Lovers. Hostile Takeover, or I don't even think they know.
I don't think they're going to be aware until the global sound cue comes out. Even then, they don't have any time to really respond. Not much to do. Really solid play from Butt Lovers to get aggressive early on. And they don't trade anything really out for it in the process. Doesn't mean a massive lead by any means. And realistically, Malum, with where things have been, I anticipate a lot of different fights to break out over the next few minutes that could change the pace of the game on either team. Right now, it seems like the solo lane direction is going in favor of Hostile Takeover, but we'll see, because right now this Osiris is smacking, but not hard enough. Rat Milk is the deciding factor there in saving Karmic and keeping him alive.
We'll see if history repeats. Does Rat Milk go mid lane, then die to an Anubis laser again? No, the laser's already out. It's on Benny Q, and Benny falls. Killing spree for Raspy.
Up into the sky, and maybe looking around for a little bit here. You've got Happen leading the charge. A good knockup, good pull, but a better beads. Beats the punch from Rat Milk and keeps things neutral. Kill onto Benny Q. Traded it out. And a fight in mid might even continue to grow as Happen gets wrapped up there, but it should fall back. And it should be the control kind of resetting. And Butt Lovers taking a commanding decision-making of this game. I wouldn't say lead, but they've been making the calls.
One thing that I've noticed already is I liked the call early to take some pressure off of Butt Lover, who clearly had a hard time last game laning into Karmic and putting the attention there. You do that, you got the kill, but Butt Lover still kind of has ended up on the worst side of things. So we pivot. The Anubis already had a couple of kills online. Let's keep our attention there. Rat Milk always likes to camp Karmic in solo, so it does make a lot of sense to just kind of let that be the case and not overthink it, not stress about it. Focusing the Anubis the way we are, look where it puts us already. About a level and a half lead on Benny Q.
Yeah, very comfortable position to be in. I have to give a shout out to these Osiris ults as well. They've been used every single time to avoid Karmic. And right now, kind of playing the option not too much for Karmic to do. Does manage to make it to the axe, though, and find the reset. And now we're in a position, maybe a little pause. I think getting out of control a little faster than Hostile Takeover would have expected. Not necessarily in a things are spiraling way, but in a, oh wow, wait, this is way more resistance than we got last game kind of way. And that change up in Gods has definitely worked out for Butt Lovers. Apollo, I believe, just kind of running around on the map right now, flying around and landing. And just going to be a small reset. Gold Fury's not up for another few minutes. First one with the way of Butt Lovers. Outside of Fenrir getting aggressive and now maybe eating a little more than he would like. Forced to fall back thanks to the Aphrodite stays alive. It's going to be a quick reset. And another little brief pause for us to maybe look down at the items. Looking specifically at the relic economy, because a lot of beads, Aegis available. Specifically missing from the solo and jungle on the side of Hostile Takeover. Maybe points to where some aggression could be had in the next couple of minutes.
I would love to see that continue. I feel like that's the only criticism I have so far for Butt Lovers, because they played so much better so far in this game too, but I feel like they're slowing down. They obviously put emphasis on their leads, but they're slowing down in doing so. Rotation out from Raspy, looking high, gonna be a fighting duo.
Damage. So far is good, but it's going to instead be Raspy, like you said, coming in from behind, causing a little bit of trouble. Tekvir over the wall with a backflip, stays alive. But you gotta path a specific way, and so far it seems to be working out. But like you said, Fenrir comes into the process, and Eats is looking to feast on this Neath. Instead, it's Inferno. Great kill to pick up for your carry. And of course, the Slapfest over in solo lane, but it's the Gold Fury right now that might be the bigger deal. A lot of damage coming out from Butt Lovers as they burn it down. No Anubis ult to try and finish this. The crypts have been emptied, and it's going to be going back and forth. Happen is the one who gets this Gold Fury, and the damage is there for the follow-up. But can they burn through the Aphrodite's healing at this point in the game? Raspy is low. They need one more hit, and BiddyQ is going to be able to seal the deal. Now, a leap over the wall is going to be good enough as they divide out and run. Butt Lovers stay alive as best they can, but they lose the objective as Hostile Takeover take over the Gold Fury pit.
Nobody in this lobby needed that kill more than BennyQ for a multitude of reasons. Ragnarok was utilized, but he should be alright. Benny getting that kill onto Raspy so big. Benny had been really quiet, was having some trouble getting farm online. Apollo ults down into the mid lane, diving the tower, but gets back to the squad. I guess may as well use it aggressively in that instance. But Apwash getting back online, Gore, being able to now finish that Soul Reaver on back 2. He gets to be more of an active member, and we already saw it in that previous engagement. Butt Lovers let the Gold Fury go. Happen got the steal, but letting it go back into empty the crypts. There's been a few different ways that Apwash was changed, but one of the cleanest and most notable in terms of how it feels changes is empty the crypts. Instead of just getting damaged by the bodies as they're coming through the ultimate, you're getting damaged by the ult itself in the space that it fills. So letting it go into that Gold Fury zone, and then the Gold Fury being unleashed back towards you, was significant for Hostile Takeover. Because I think, honestly, even if Happen hadn't gotten the last hit on gold, Benny was going to steal it with the ultimate anyway, because it did get let go of. And that will probably continue as we get to the next objectives, and they get bigger and bigger as well. It's just such a... It's almost unmatched in the amount of space it controls and how the damage feels. Fenrir looking left, though, for a bit of a tasty Neath.
Well, it should be. I mean, this is probably one of the most classic, been happening for 14 years matchups. Neath backflip, Fenrir leap, and then, yeah, the brutalize afterward. You have pretty much everything you need from there. If you're Tekvir, you just got to stay alive. And it looks like this time, surprisingly, successfully able to do so. Might lose some of the jungle. Might still lose your life if you back too carefully. And I like this, just running all the way back to the Phoenix line, knowing that Eats could chase you down. Eats is still chasing you down, though.
You called it.
So, having to run back about as far as you can. This is... I mean, it's just one of those places where, as a Fenrir, this is a matchup you should know. This is a matchup you should dominate. This is a matchup that Tekvir has to be aware of. I mean, those beads are probably going to be on cooldown pretty regularly because Eats could just have that presence over on the left-hand side of the map.
The pace of this game is still surprising to me. We talked earlier about just how much arena we've been playing today, I think is the the big thing, but in this one in particular, it's just calm. And it doesn't feel too calm before the storm. I say that, which means now it will be. It doesn't feel like either team's in a rush to make fights happen there, but everyone on the field right now is comfortable letting the game get late, letting things unfold as they will. I think the biggest key for me still looking across at players after I've already mentioned the Opwash catching back up. Rat Milk is still out farming eats. There are the kills advantage to the Uelish, but if you look at the map, every time something's going on, like right now in mid, Rat Milk stopped at the back camps, looked for farm, then came over for the rotation. He'll be here for the fight, but then you'll see afterwards, he'll separate back out into the jungle and say, okay, what's next? Queen Naga, cool, let's go to it. I think that could be a big difference. That will be a deciding factor, is that Rat Milk will be able to get so ahead in farm that the rest of Butt Lovers will have a hard time competing into the Uelish.
Yeah, the 2 kills on the Uelish right now have kind of tamped that down, but if you don't keep getting kills on the Uelish to stop... Because literally all that is not, oh, we've killed her, we're getting the experience. That's not what you care about. You've killed her, that's time that she's not farming now. That's literally what you are earning anytime you can take Rat Milk off the map. And like you said, unless there's a moment, right, where you can find those, it is going to continue growing over there. So you have to watch the kind of matchup. How does the Fenrir find that balance? Does Eats stay in this one a little bit more? Because by this time last game, admittedly, there were also like 4 times as many kills on the board. But the levels were out of control on the side of Hostile Takeover. And that's why it took so long for Butt Lovers to even make a defense at that point. Now, though, they're trying to... Like you said, play it patiently, play it a little more careful. I mean, you've got a relatively squishy team, not all of which have good escapes, so you have to play careful in that regard. But it does not necessarily mean you have to sacrifice anything that would maybe be more beneficial for your team. You need to be on top of your farm, you need to be going for some of the neutral objectives. That Pyromancer going the way of Hostile Takeover is definitely going to hurt. But balanced out by that last Gold Fury still going to Butt Lovers. It's one of those things, every time one of these teams right now feels like they're starting to pull ahead, the other one finds a way to match them.
Ragnarok out, grabs, brings through, the crypts are emptied, but the only one dead has happened.
Yeah, I mean, that is a blink and you miss it. Raspy does get traded out, so it'll be 1 for 1, and admittedly support for mid favors Hostile Takeover with the current space, especially if you still get the support after the fact. And that is going to create a whole ton, especially as Tegvir, who's not anywhere near this fight, is split pushing, gets the tier 1, is going to get some decent poke, at least a minion wave under that tier 2, and cause a little bit of trouble. Might get caught out by this Fenrir in the jungle, and that could be a dangerous spot to be in.
Wheelish is here too, though,
behind, but you've got a Wheelish, so it's going to be a 2v2. The classic matchup of carries and junglers, but the low health bar of Tegvir is going to get burned down, and Rat Milk well. Inferno going absolutely insane with the autos there, finding, weaving, shooting, killing. Gets it done and brings his team back up. 9 to 8 read the kills, but it's still about 1,500 gold for Hostile Takeover that leads the way. And it's 18 minutes. Again, about as even as you could possibly want.
Yeah, Inferno played that so well, too. Just kind of not being afraid to stand and throw. You would think normally an Apollo would try to reposition, but if Inferno takes the time to reposition there, they probably die in doing so. So to be able to stand and throw like that was a great play. Also, the Fenrir is building in a way that the Neath cannot do anything about. Starting off with the Berserker Shield, then we go into the Nemean after the Oathsworn Spear, so we're just not taking damage from Neath anymore, and even if you do, you simply press your active button, turn on high to the Nemean, and now Neath hates her life and doesn't want to play the game anymore. You might even get her to stop autoing. I love that choice from Eats. You've already committed to making the Neath your priority target. Raspy's been able, for the most part, to kind of free cast until Benny's come online in these more recent fights. I really like the attention there. The only worry I have is, are we planning on sending Butt Lover to focus out Benny Q now? Because Tegvir has an answer, Rat Milk sort of second-hand gets an answer due to the same reasons build-wise from the Fenrir if the Fenrir's diving. Apollo has kind of a built-in answer for the Wheelish. If you can, doesn't have beads, but if you can time things well enough, if you can make sure you don't get grabbed by the ultimate, you can fight into a Wheelish pretty well. You talked about it in picks and bans, no knock-up, you can use the Mez well. Is Butt Lover diving Benny Q? Because that might be a key to success for Butt Lovers. But Pyro's up, and the dog's in.
Yeah, Eats goes in for the bite, gets a lot of damage. Happen is the one who ends up getting burned down. Oh, from the Apollo, or not the Apollo, well, also used. But the Anubis is the one that's up and falling down. But Tegvir, surprisingly, the first one to lose their life. I thought the damage was going to go the way of Hostile Takeover, but instead, it has been turned around. Ratmilk low, Ratmilk chased, and Ratmilk killed. You've got Benny Q and Karmic, last two standing, but it's a 2v5. They've got to do it all by themselves, and I just don't know if they have it. It's instead an attempt to stay alive and get out. And even though Eats has to reset, you've got healing from the Aphrodite. Could be a call for a Fire Giant. It's right there and waiting. But it is the Pyromancer on the other side, and Karmic and Benny Q keeping just enough presence to make sure that their team will respawn. And that Butt Lovers won't be able to get either of the big objectives on the right-hand side of the map.
The Aphrodite's putting in work. I talked about it earlier, going this cooldown, tanky build. Like I said, I hadn't seen the Chronos Pendant used with it. I think I've mostly only seen it played in slightly lower levels, where usually that first item is something a little bit different. I've seen it be Stampede, I've seen it be Prophetic, but I actually really like the Chronos, because you're just getting more and more cooldown! Nice attempt, but no good. Pyro goes to Butt Lovers. But the Aphrodite, once she gets that Heartward Charm on, it's not just for the use of it where you activate it, you get a double use of your heal. You would think that's the only use, but the item itself gives, and you'll see it once it's grabbed, the stats it gives, the extra cooldown, like, we're feeling great if we're Aphrodite and we build that item. And so far, I'm surprised the Afro's so free and clear. Free casting, I guess I wouldn't go that far, but how in Gore, in every fight, we're saying, oh, Tegvir getting focused, Raspy, a lot of damage, he ults, Butt Lover's doing this, Inferno's doing that. Nothing's happening to this Aphrodite. She's just kind of around. But the proof in how useful she's being is there for the sustain that we just saw. This should be countered by Hostile Takeover. They've got to reassess their target evaluation going forward and really make that Aphrodite a priority target, because otherwise they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Gold Fury, Ratmilk secures that one. 2 for each team now at this point. 2 pips for each team. Again, that might showcase it better than I can eloquently put how even these two have been. Karmic, though, in trouble. Butt Lover chasing him down, and Apollo going up into the sky. Should be an easy dive. Might not even be necessary, but it will be a kill nonetheless. And is the team going to go in? Butt Lover took a lot of damage in the process. Horus comes forward, brings a couple people. The Crips get dropped down, and the damage seems to be good. But again, it's the Anubis burning through the front line. Happen is absolutely erased by that one. Still alive, but dancing in the back line needs the healing. Ratmilk goes down. It's 2 for 1. It's a heavy investment from Hostile Takeover just to take down the solo laner. And it costs 2 in order to get there.
Benny Q is pumping out numbers, but it's just not enough on his lonesome. Tegvir, a weirdly quiet game from him so far, even to this point. You've got to clean that up. That's where so much of your damage is going to come from. And this was something we talked about too, right? Not only is that Nemean online, and I guess this kind of has almost fallen to the wayside since we talked about it in picks and bans, this is for physical for Hostile Takeover, the only magical damage being Benny Q. So the more and more that gets online for the side of Butt Lovers, like that breastplate of Valor, it's doing so much work for the Aphrodite. It's kind of insane, despite being the main item so far. Same thing with that Dwarven breastplate. It gives Butt Lovers so many options. When you are diving Benny Q, you can swap it over. Otherwise, you just get to be insanely tanky against everything physical. The builds are a great answer, and Hostile Takeover, they're not out of this game. They're actually leading in gold despite the kills and the tied Gold Fury pips, currently 2-2. I think the key just... I know I said it already, Gore. It's entirely in their target prioritization. I don't think you can target Butt Lover. He's going to be way too tanky. What you need to do in my brain, try to get through to the Aphrodite. And if you can't get through to the Aphrodite, not just to kill her, by the way, to get her isolated and be able to actually get some of these benefits you have from your team onto her. I don't think the Alpoash has been able to target her. And she also is creating so much space for the Apollo. And in the last fight, you saw that. The whole fight happened in solo. Apollo was standing off to the right of the lane, just firing for free. Hang on, mid lane, Fenrir, he's okay. You can't let that happen. You have to find some way to shrink the breathing room of the Butt Lovers and make them feel just a little bit more claustrophobic.
Ancient Fury, as you just saw, will now start spawning. Fire Giant is also a threat on the board. It was, that last fight, a very weird amount of focus on Butt Lover, and I think it was just because they were already half health or a little under when it started, so it was like, oh, well, we'll just get that kill. The Osiris is tanky. The Osiris does not kill. The Osiris is going to fight back every step of the way. Karmic needs a little more help than just focusing the lane mate. And like you said, it needs to be target prioritization of other goals.
Benny
right
has an
now,
angle when he gets here.
It seemed like it was going to be a lot. Like you said, Benny could be coming in and making a bit difference, but you've already lost Rat Milk. You've lost one of your biggest damage makers. Now, dropping the ult. The Crips are out, and finally they shut down Inferno. They need a little bit more than this. It can't just be the 1-for-1. You need more kills, but you've lost Tegveer. Instead, you might lose a little more. The ult from Raspy comes out and deals the damage. A Wrap could be massive here against Karmic. And the follow-up damage is just eating them apart, burning them down one by one. Hostile takeover. They might have dominated game 1, but they did not show up here so far for game 2. The Deicide comes out, and Butt Lovers stand on top.
You call out of work, you call into demon time, and the Butt Lovers figure everything out, Gore. Game 1 was a disaster class, and Game 2 so far is turning into a bit of a masterpiece. Hostile Takeover have kept the gold so close, but they are just outmatched and outgunned in these fights. Fire Giant on the table to contest here, borderline impossible, that maybe there's a world Rat Milk can get close. I'd be shocked to see a steal. You got Fire, you can look to close out this game, but now Rat Milk's here. Fire's 4K, you can't give this away for free.
Lower and lower it gets. And with Rat Milk gone, that seems to be all she wrote. Fire Giant goes the way of Butt Lovers. 20 kills to 10. Finally leading in gold as well. Even that last fight afterward, that didn't seem like they had taken over. And now it is open for them. The question is, what can they do with it? It is going to be also, what is the late game going to be like? Right now, I feel like we've got some decent damage. I mean, look at it from Op Wash. And then it's a massive fall down before you get to see anybody else. The Horus, Malum, I gotta say it today. We've seen the Horus a couple times, and it has not really looked as impressive as I anticipated.
I agree. I feel like a big part of that is, it feels like, I'm not sure if it's just because he hasn't been in the game for a while or what, but his ultimate's just not getting the value we're accustomed to. We can count the times in one hand we've seen it utilized today. And even at that, hasn't looked fantastic when it does. I feel like Hostile Takeover will really need to not just find a way to play around it more, but the Horus has to open some doors for the team. You talked about the damage from BennyQ being fantastic, and it is, but you talked about the fall-off. Tegveer and Rat Milk being that low on a damage charge should never, ever happen. And happen could be the key to fixing that. If you can just try to get through, and I mentioned it, but just open up the space for the rest of your team, that could be your answer. The problem is now you're going to be completely on the back foot for the foreseeable future. 3 Gold Furies, so that's 25% damage structures, that's 50 bonus protections when you're near the structures. For Hostile Takeover, that's a nightmare because of how these fights have been playing out. Butt Lovers are able to just dive endlessly, walk at you, they take so much damage, you're unable to really find much CC to open the door for much. And you're feeling the lack of CC from the Chalk too, as I mentioned that. Because you have, obviously, the Horus CC. The Wheelish, the ultimates have slowed down in these last couple of fights. And then after that, what have you got, right? I mean, sure, Chalk's ultimate's awesome. But can Karmic use it if he's dead? Karmic's had to use it as a survivability tool. Butt Lovers are taking advantage of each and every single one of these things. And now as they dive forward, BennyQ, the target, but gets away. Forces the ult, though. Gore with the tier 2 falling. My biggest takeaways, my biggest things to watch for on this siege. Surely we give up tier 2s. Do we even bother taking a fight if Hostile Takeover? Let them take what they want. Only fight if you have to and in your Phoenix zone.
Especially with the tier 2 not really fighting back for you.
No,
Instead,
don't do that.
Take a fight maybe a little too early. They get massively stunned. Luckily, it is thwarted, but it's mostly at the cost of BennyQ's ult. A huge team fight tool gone for the time being. And as you said, it keeps the bare minimum alive. You're focusing on your Phoenixes. You're trying to keep that alive as best you can. And Butt Lovers, keep control and keep grip on this game. 29 minutes in. At this point last game, we were seeing Inferno desperately cling to life under the Titan for what was about another 5 minutes. Now, it feels like that's been flipped. Tower count, 3 standing for Butt Lovers. Tier 1 and 2 on the right-hand side of the map. Tier 2 in mid, and that's it. Otherwise, all 3 Phoenixes. And then just the lone Tier 2 duo side for Hostile Takeover, holding on as best as it can. So now the question, as you mentioned, is going to be target prioritization from Hostile Takeover. Target prioritization from Butt Lovers as the Fire Giant wears off. And maybe more importantly, what the next minute is going to look like right before we have these fights. Farm, gold, buying items, all of that. Really important. And maybe most important is Benny Q, the only relic that's down right now, is matching up around the timer the Fire Giant is going to respawn, so that could be very actually massively helpful. But otherwise, it feels like everything's on the board, everything's ready and waiting. And it comes down to what you've been kind of cracking into this entire time. What these fights and how these fights break down is maybe the crucial key for who could win this game. Because now, 30 minutes in, it doesn't matter how many towers are up. It doesn't matter if your Phoenixes are up. If you team wipe and let the Fire Giant go the other way, that could be the end.
Karmic in some trouble, but not afraid to step in. Gore, one big thing I want to point out really, really quick. Ultimate-wise, right? Watch how Raspy uses ult and follows up. That Anubis ult has been the key to these team fights for Butt Lovers.
I've also been impressed with Inferno's ultimates. Right now, Karmic, who's been low, burned down finally, but Eats has lost a lot of their life in the process. Here's that Apollo ult I was talking about. Playing aggressive, goes in, but you lose Butt Lover. It's solo for solo. Finally, a trade that Hostile Takeover can take. But it's a lot of ultimates, and like you said, going in, Happen leads the way. Now it's going to be Fenrir turning around, left alone by his team, and Eats is burned down for it. And now everybody's alone. You do lose Rat Milk, so far you're matching 1 for 1. If Tegvir's goes down, it continues, but instead they lose Raspy. They're looking to chase down the Aphrodite. The 3v1 is what you need. A tanky Aphrodite exists and is getting way more damage than should be happening on Benny, but finally goes down, shut down, deicide for Hostile Takeover, and the Fire Giant waiting in the pit for him.
The Fire Giant and the quadra kill by Tegvir. So much damage from this Neath. It feels like Hostile Takeover has been playing the whole game for this moment. And one of the things I really wanted to talk about, but just couldn't get the time in that last second, was despite how out of it Hostile Takeover has felt in these fights, they kept gold close this whole game, right? We were both talking about that. What that did was it kept itemization online for Hostile Takeover. So they're attack speed, by the way, am I right? They were able to have everything online for that fight. They weren't as far behind as I think Butt Lovers thought they were. It seemed like Butt Lovers just kind of called it a wash, and they're like, oh, we just wiped this fight. But they used the Anubis ult really early, and that was why I talked about that right before the fight. They've been using that ult kind of deeper into fights as a cleanup tool to sort of answer back that mid-fight aggression the Hostile Takeover's team is so good at, because they can sustain through fights that you talked about in picks and bans. Instead, you use the Anubis ultimate right away, and you got value, sure, but look what it ends up being. You had nothing up for once Tegvir said, oh, but what if I held left click? And here's the really cool thing about Neath, right? Her aspect gives her so much attack speed. You have so much damage from the Transcendence and the Titan's Vein, plus the stats from going Blinking Abyss. Tegvir goes a Magi's here, it's not going to affect his damage at all.
Now Tegvir, the 4-4 and 5 slash line kind of betrays it. Honestly, even the damage, like being 4th on the charts, it kind of betrays how important that last fight was. And how
he got
big
like 10k in the last fight or something ridiculous.
Yeah, realistically, it was that's the difference maker, right? Now Tegvir has been comfortable on this Neath all day. I will give the Apollo a ton of credit because I think we've seen Inferno be a massive part of these fights. Aggressive ults looking for kills, but that last ult, it's part of the reason things went so awry, right? Going in as deep as they did. Oh, it just, I don't know, it just ripped them all apart. And now again with this Fire Giant, you've got 4 with belts on. Rat Milk does not have it. And with that tier 2 in mid taken down, the only towers left are over on the right-hand side of the map. Not really where you want to be focused this late into the game. So 34 minutes in, this is already longer than game 1. It's going to be about Phoenix Siege / defense. And it's a Phoenix that doesn't have a lot going for it, thanks to that last Fury. You've got the Horus ult coming in. It's just Horus who zones it out. That's actually really well done, though, because it makes him fall back and opens up wide and easy Phoenix. And the best one to get, the left side bird, forced by a retreat and hostile takeover, locking in for the latter half of this late game.
Sometimes you might hear, when you're watching competitive with comms or you're watching people queue ranked, you might hear solo laners and ADCs talk about, oh, I gotta go grab my tier 1, or you might see say, hey, go get your tier 1. This is a good reason why. 35 minutes into the game, hostile takeover turns the game on its head. They're so close to being able to come back in and potentially even win this game now. But they had to keep their siege a little bit tempered, a little bit tame, because a tier 1 is up all the way in right lane. By the way, that gold swing is absurd. Literally a mountain that just went underwater.
That's a roller coaster that most people would love to ride on. That is a thrill ride.
Hey, Gormizer, I found Atlantis. It's underneath the blue chart. But you leave the tier 1 tower up. Now you kind of have to slow things down. It's pretty easy to go grab that tier 1 at some point, but with how Titans have been changed in some of the most recent updates, you have to respect towers being up. The Titans are just so much tankier in comparison.
Yeah.
EFG, it matters a little bit less, especially because by the time EFG is up, we're probably getting into 3k potion territory. So admittedly, that will matter less. But for that last normal fire giant and a siege where you got the wipe, but respawns are coming up, you just couldn't take that risk. So now the tier 1's cleaned up, tier 2's available. Big for hostile takeover. They can get a lot of vision advantage here. You notice no sentries in pocket for butt lovers. So hostile takeover will have all the ward coverage they need to know what's going to go down. But hostile takeover, step it up quick, Gore.
Damage is going to be there. They're separated. This is actually the best space. Hostile takeover, find them and isolate. Admittedly, they isolated Butt Lover, who is not who we wanted to see them isolate, but they got good damage. They got the Relic, and Force eats down, and Force eats into the ground as they find the kill. Tegveer, again, going big. Apollo, Inferno, gonna be one of the primary targets, and right now just trying to dance around, stay alive, and Karmic does so through the Anubis ult. Raspy losing one of their major tools in this game, and losing two of his teammates as well as his own life now, with 5 still strong, running down the midline Phoenix. Inferno already low. Aphrodite ult used to stay alive, but stunned and killed thanks to the Plus, and now walking it down despite the odds, despite the background. It is game 2 and the finals win for Hostile Takeover.
Unreal. So many crazy things at the end. The rat milk double off the Apwash stun. But I told you that heal, man! It was gonna come back to bite them on the Apwash 3. That the fleeting breath is very, very fleeting. You don't want to mess with it, but even before that, Karmic danced around the Anubis ult for so long that as the Anubis ult ended, Happen ulted down and got the knock-up that kept Karmic alive in the last fight. That difference, that little tiny thing, kept the left side, strong side going, while the rest of Hostile Takeover, we saw Ratmilk and Tegveer take the 2v1 in the right lane. That ultimate from Teg, the World Weaver connects on Eats, he falls and everything crumbles from there. In Hostile Takeover, they really had it brought to them. And I don't want to, in any world, do I want any credit to be lost from Butt Lovers, because this is a team that quite literally came out of nowhere, was formed in the past week from scraps of a previous team, and made it to finals against not just a great Smite Prime team, but one of the best Smite 2 teams that we have had in the entirety of Smite 2 so far, and took them to the distance in this game, and really made them work for it. Game 1, obviously, a little bit different. I think a lot of that can be attested to the Newt. So overall, the Butt Lovers should feel so good about how they played this set.
The thing that really stands out to me, and it's exactly what you said, right? Game 1, there was a lot of good, but you could tell there were moments where it got out of hand. Butt Lovers started out well, and then there were some things that it's just hard to do. And it's stuff that you have to learn to do as a team that take a lot of time. Farming from behind, how do you handle a team that's playing super aggressive in your face when you're 10k down, things like that. This is the game, If I'm them, I'm watching this one back because there's so much good in this. And really, the problems that show up, the reason Hostile Takeover win, in my mind, is because of
Here it
these
is, the
last couple
fleeting
of
breath.
fights, right? Just being able to find those moments where they finally separate them. They keep them from being a death ball and keep them from finding that advantage. You had mentioned, Raspy using the ult a little early. I think being able to get Fenrir to, push out of the fight super early and kind of stopping that ult from being effective. Like, there was just a lot that Hostile Takeover did well at the very end. Like, it's literally in what, about 4 maybe 5 minutes, it feels like it all collapses. And it is just a couple of fights that they really dug their heels in. But as mentioned, and as worth mentioning again, it is still a win. And despite the good look from Butt Lovers and a great name, that does mean that they are eliminated.
Such a good
now.
name.
2-0, and the finals go to Hostile Takeover. They are the victors today, and they look pretty darn good doing it. That last one, admittedly, after some of the games we saw, some of the more clown fiestas we saw, that one was
Say the
about as
least.
competitive as it could have possibly gotten.
It ended up strong. And you know what's crazy? I know we're going to talk about it in literally 2 seconds. That's the start of our weekend. 2 days of Smite Prime now.
Yeah.
So it only gets up from here. What an addition and what a start.
Before we talk about that, we'll call that a thread. We're a little spoilers,
Yes.
right?
Ooh,
Laying
I
it
like
down
that.
for the future. As we instead look at what these guys were playing for to begin with, the way things have been going. You got several weeks here in the June circuit, and of course you're trying to do as much as you can in the process. $5,000 right there. You can find out more, of course, read more, and if you want to play and get a team together, you can go to smiteprime.com and jump in whenever you decide you want to, except for the last week, but that's because things are a little different down there. This is what we saw today. Of course, we watched a lot of Hostile Takeover, a little bit of Chingle Blorgan, who got removed by Butt Lovers. Some fun names today. That's the other thing that happens when the bragging gets thrown up from teams that show up.
That semifinals must have been cinema. Can you imagine? Oh,
yeah.
I mean, isn't Chingle
Having to say
Blorgan
both of
Butt
those would've
Lovers
been
the Offspring
wild.
song? Isn't that the opening?
All right, that might win for Joke of the Day. That's really, really good. But as we saw, Hostile Takeover, the 2-0 betrays how competitive that last one was.
Let
But
Malum
we
chair
see
too,
them
they
find-
said.
It'll be a good idea, they said. Surely, he'll cast with Gordon. They'll do it all well together. As we mentioned, though, tomorrow there is more Smite Prime going on, and it's happening a little bit earlier. We've got the EU Joust that is going to be coming on around 9 a.m. Eastern. You can put that into Google to figure it out when that is for your time zone, because I don't know time zones super good, and so I can't explain it all for you. I know Europe is 5 or 6 hours ahead, and Japan is 12 or 13, depending on which part of the year we're in. So figure it out for where you happen to be. It is going to be an early morning. And of course, they're going to be playing, as you can see, pretty much, I believe it's every Sunday for a long time, as you see based on the dates there. Starting tomorrow, though, with EU in the morning. Malum, I know you're excited for it. It also brings in a different balance to the equation, right? The joust aspect of it. Different map, different builds, different metas, different everything, as you would maybe expect to the normal circuitry matchups.
Plus, it's Dilo and Musi, I believe, doing EU Joust. So usually they're the two that go haywire. They get called into John Smite Prime's office. So I think we've set the bar high, which means they have a lot to get higher than. And the best part is, since we're the ones who are going to give feedback, look out for casting review feedback content coming out for Smite Prime. Selfless ad for Smite Prime. Since we're the ones doing the review, we get to be hypocrites and yell at other people for being unprofessional and immature. And then we get to come on and be like, yeah, we're big butt guys, baby. And that is the summarization of our Saturday.
That's what tenure buys you. That's what being here for a long time opens up, is the goodwill or something like that. But from myself and Malum and everyone, of course, back in production, everyone who played today, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you follow Smite Prime. You can go to the website, Discord, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it at this point, any of the socials, all of that's good stuff. You can follow them to find out when all of these tournaments are going on, and of course to keep track of everything is. But again, from all of us here, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you tomorrow for some EU Joust.
What you want to do is save hundreds when Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance.
That's great, but can you ask your friend to stop digging into the green?
I can ask, but he's not going to. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
We've been your partner for life on two wheels for nearly 2 decades, with the largest assortment of gear, the best brands, and the latest tech. More moto content than anywhere else online. The world's best rider loyalty program. Award-winning customer service. And lightning fast delivery. Gear up, lock in. Get going with RevZilla.
Early evening at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and we are preparing ourselves here in the Eifel Mountains, the Eifel Valley, for another edition of qualifying this evening, the first day of 4 across this Corpus Christi weekend. And you could argue that for those qualifying cars that are not yet into top qualifying for tomorrow afternoon, the first 15 minutes of this is going to be incredibly important, because it's only the SP9, the GT3 cars that aren't already in, that will get access to the full circuit. So much quieter than it's going to be for the following 3¼ hours. My name's Johnny Palmer. I'm delighted to be joined again by Joe Bradley and Ben Constant-Juris. Can't quite see the end of pit lane exit and that route towards the Yokohama S, but I'm sensing, chaps, it's going to be quite a long queue, Joe.
They're there. They're ready. They're ready. There are some teams that really have to get on this. None more so, perhaps, than the number 16, which is the Shira Sport Porsche. This is the car that we saw in the earlier session have that problem with the drivetrain. The team tell us that it's, from what it sounded, a little was lost in translation, but I'm taking it and as the inner CV joint on the drive shaft, which is certainly what it sounded like. Ben, you did say drive shaft, didn't you? And you could hear the sound coming off the car on the from the onboard. So I think I'm going to give full marks to Ben, because it was a drive shaft in effect, wasn't it? The CV joint.
It was, and they were the only of our SP9 cars not to set a lap time at all. But we still do have SP9 cars, of course, outside of the possibility of getting into top qualifying, which will be our first session tomorrow. So we have to establish it tonight, because the top 15, top 17 positions on the grid will be set before the final qualifying session tomorrow afternoon. And then the rest of the grid will be set by a combined time, a combination of our 3 sessions, qualifying 1 earlier, qualifying 2 coming up, and qualifying 3 tomorrow. I still think, and I said this in qualifying 1, that the most important session will be this golden hour session, because it will be the fastest.
Yeah, we reckon that. A team that's really laid down a marker, though, with an 8-minute 14.1, 4.7 seconds quicker than anyone. It's the number 1 Audi, the Shira Sport Audi. that Audi had pre-qualified for the top qualifiers. However, it was kicked out of that because of a change of tyre manufacturer. It's gone from Yokohama's to Michelin. It's lost its pre-qualification place, so it has to get it done in these qualifying sessions. And what a marker that was, 8 minutes 14.1, 4.7 seconds quicker than anyone else. And that's, I agree with Ben. We usually will, we should see times going quicker this evening. It's going to be cooler. Just as the sun starts to go down, the track temperature reduces slightly, the air gets thicker, so we should see. I tell you what though, guys, are we going to see a quicker than an 8 minute 14?
Yeah. We should be sub 110, 8:10.
Yeah, true.
Really.
That's true. Especially in these conditions.
That time was set very early in the session. Don't forget, before we started seeing the yellow flags and the code 60s and the slow zones. And,
that's true.
And basically, the session only had 35 minutes worth of completely clear, full green flag running. The rest of the session, there might have been a yellow flag somewhere. You could have avoided that and got a lap time in. But we still saw some teams down we've got a Pro-Am car from SP9 down in 25th position overall. There's another one which is an AM car, but it's down in 38th position. But they are still an SP9 category car. The difference between 25th and first is around 20 seconds. So that could be a small yellow flag, and you could still improve on it.
But exactly the same sort of environment's going to ensue out there on the Nordschleife. This evening's going to be no different from this afternoon when we did see a lot of truncated running.
I mean, that's the benefit of this first 15 minutes, is that hopefully, if nobody has an incident, then the track will remain clear throughout, and that's why it's so valuable for these cars that have not qualified yet. Remember, there are already 12 in, so they have their golden tickets in readiness for the 1 session tomorrow afternoon, and then there are a further 15 cars trying to snatch those final 5 positions within SP9. Remember as well that if you're already in, the 12 cars that have qualified, they're not allowed to take part in this next session for the first 35 minutes. Slightly bizarre number, but then I kind of drilled down into it and I thought, well, you're not allowed in the first 15 minutes anyway, and then it's the next 20 minutes. So it's actually 20 minutes throughout the course of the 2 days. Not allowed in the first 20 minutes of Q1, Q2 kind of, and Q3. And, you know, how valuable is Q3 anyway to those that have already cemented their position on the grid? Because you know you're going to be starting first or fourth or seventh. Will many of those take part in qualifying 3? We'll have to wait and see. Here we go, though, Joe and Ben. Here's the bomb burst, because the 2 Lamborghinis, the apt Lamborghinis, are heading out onto the racetrack. So they're on their Michelin tyres. Remember, there's a real big mixture of different tyre manufacturers as well. Also wriggling free. I think I spotted the number 55 Porsche. But this will be presumably just an outlap. You can't even afford, to be honest, to be wasting time doing a lap of the Grand Prix circuit. You want to do a flying lap and then an outlap and then start your flying lap as early as possible, because 15 minutes with an 8-minute lap is going to go so quickly.
It absolutely does. Recalibrate your mind. It's not a conventional racetrack in any way, shape or form.
Well, think about it. It's exactly the same as what top qualifying is. It's 2 flying laps. So it's almost mirroring what we will see tomorrow afternoon with that session. The 8 minutes 20.643 is the target time to beat to get you through into the next session if others don't improve later on in the session, which they could likely do. So we're not going to establish who's in and who's out after this 15 minutes. This is just the cleanest running they're going to get, in theory.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for anybody who doesn't set a time within this 15 minutes to then improve upon it, because of the reasons we've outlined. One of a number of Valkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martins now turning left. The other thing that I hadn't spotted, which you have to kind of go into the garage to realise this, but Valkenhorst Motorsport have a number of Aston Martins here. They definitely have a very pro car, which is the 34 car of Mattia Drudi, Christian Krognes, David Pittard and Nicky Team. Now there's this partnership between Valkenhorst and Pirelli tyres, whereby they're working together. You go and stand by the 34, it's on Michelin's. Now whose say has that been, I wonder? But clearly the guys in that 34 car don't feel the Pirellis are going to quite match an Audi on Michelin's, a Porsche on Michelin's. So that's the black sheep of the family, if you like. And I just wonder whether the four drivers have got together with their engineer and said, we need to be on the French rubber to do well in this event.
Look at the entry list in front of us. It says Pirelli, so it was obviously another late-ish change.
And I wonder when that decision was made.
They're not one of the 12. I wonder if they had been one of the 12, they would have been booted out of it. Because if they'd run on the Pirellis, I'd need to check the records, but if they're on Pirellis during the qualifying weekend last month, it's the same story with the number 1 Audi. They've changed as well, also to Michelin from Yokohama, fairly late in the day, and now have to re-qualify for one of those 17 positions.
Their time from earlier on this morning was 8 minutes 19.8. It was only a thousandth of a second from the car ahead of it. And if you look at the timings from this morning session, all right, we had the Shearer Audi going 4.7 ahead of the rest of the field, but then in second place, the second quickest car is only just under 0.3 of a second. That second place car, the number 40, had already qualified. That's the Black Falcon Porsche. Only a matter of just under 0.3 of a second ahead of the number 98 Rover Racing BMW, who likewise was just under 0.2 of a second quicker than the fourth place car, which was the Dynamic GT Porsche.
I demand a lot of my body. I'm a singer, I'm a dancer, I'm an actor. And I want to make the most of every single day. I do want to do 8 shows a week on Broadway. I do want to travel. And I know if I want a lot out of my body, out of my mind, my energy, I have to put the right things into my body.
Morning!
And it gives me such peace of mind to know that I have this really simple and yet trusted way of getting all the nutrition I need. Oh, it's good.
This summer, watch the greatest stories.
I believe in you.
The biggest action. Including the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Final. Live with the Disney Plus Hulu and ESPN bundle.
Who was just under half a second quicker than the Falcon Motorsports Porsche, number 33. That's how close, second all the way down to, where am I? To 10th. Just literally tenths of a second. Tenths of a second around this track. Tenths of a second in it between over 15 miles. Incredible.
Some of that's down to the amount of code 60 and yellow flags that were around, because obviously you're hampered to go at 60 kilometers per hour, in some places 120 kilometers per hour, so you're going to get quite similar lap times. But nevertheless, there was still quite a lot of green around the racetrack during that first session, so that's the sort of figures we're talking about. But as Ben mentions, we can still shave a good couple or 3 or 4 seconds off the times we've seen so far. And bear in mind, it was an SB9 Pro-Am car that finished second fastest earlier on today, the 48 Black Falcon Team EAE car in its resplendent gold and red colours. So this is basically an extension of qualifying 1. It's called qualifying 2, but all the times are retained on the timing screen from earlier in the day, and there's always the option to go a little bit faster. So that's what we're talking about, a combined session. We don't have to worry about average times, adding the times together for each driver and then dividing by 3, anything as complicated as that. It's sort of how Le Mans used to work, isn't it, before those hyperpole sessions burst on the scene.
Long, drawn-out qualifying sessions, and the time could come whenever. And it wasn't very telly-friendly, which tomorrow's qualifying session is very telly-friendly, and the excitement mounting. And all right, it's a long, again, we have to have a long session here. It's what, 3.5 hours this evening? It's the Nordschleife, it's the Nürburgring, it's the 24-hour circuit, it's 15 miles. So it might seem like 3.5 hours, that's ages. You've got plenty of time to get your time in. You really haven't. You've got, you only get maybe one optimized run on a set of tires, really, and then, your second lap isn't going to necessarily be as quick as your first lap. And then factor in incidents on circuit, cars on circuit. This is a vital start of this session, and that's why we're seeing all of the runners getting out there while the track is as clear as it's going to be for the next 3.5 hours.
Christopher Hasse in the number 1, fastest in Q1. And and out on circuit, right in the middle of the pack. The onboard camera sound, if you are following us on radio, is that of the number 1 Audi. And of course, because he's not officially through yet, he's out on circuit trying to set a lap time and also trying to improve that lap time. Kelvin van der Linde in the only BMW that we have, the Rover Racing BMW, is in the 98. Matteo Cairoli in the dynamic Porsche 54. Then from Q1 in 5th position, the 34 Valkenhorst Aston Martin of Matteo Drudi, who is on pole position at Le Mans in GT3 just less than a week ago. Jordan Pepper is in the Lamborghini Red Bull team at number 27. And then I stumble across the first of the ones I can't do off the top of my head. Marek Botman, thank you very much, in the 37 Pro Sport Aston Martin. Johnny, carry on.
Then we've got Dennis Olsen. I mean, talk about cool cars. The HRT4 Performance Mustangs are just incredible. There's only 4 cars in that garage because the Mustang's such a massive car. They can just about fit 2 abreast at the front of the garage. Then you've got a little Audi S3 run by Family Net and Christophe Dupre.
Yeah.
So that's a cool car as well. I think John Hindhaugh mentioned earlier in the week that that's his favourite so far. And alongside it is a 3rd Mustang wedged into the back of the garage. And to be honest, they've been doing a lot of work on that. Only about an hour or so, an hour and a half to go to this session. Wasn't really a body panel on the yellow car at the back of the garage. They will have had to hurry to get that involved. And Dennis Olsen is at the wheel of the 64.
Johnny, don't forget that car stopped early in qualifying 1. It did have a problem out on circuit. No impact with the barrier, but it was parked up and dragged home. So whatever, I couldn't find out from the team what the issue was, but as you say, it was pretty naked.
It was very naked, and that car then needing quite a bit of work. They're numbered in sequence, so 63, 64 and 65. The 64 car is predominantly blue, yellow for the 65 Mustang, black and silver, cool combination of colours for the 63. It's the pro car that we'll probably be focusing on, which is 64, driven by at the moment by Dennis Olsen, and also in that car due to be Arjun Maini, Frank Schnippler and Yusuf Ovega of the Ovega brothers. So back across the line for the first time, Audi number 1 has reached the start finish. Christopher Haase doing, what time have we got for this number 1 car?
Well, no times yet. No times, because that was out.
That was an out lap, of course it was.
Yeah.
So now we're going to begin the meaningful lap for a car that thought it was in, then it was out because of a deliberate decision. We have to think to change to what they think are better tyres at Scherer Sport PHX. And now with a lot of work to do. Kelvin van der Linde's Rover Racing BMW that finished earlier in the day 3rd fastest, ahead of the 54 Dynamic GT Porsche, and Matteo Drudi's Valkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martin. The other cars we've missed, the 63 Mustang, which is being driven by Dirk Muller. So he's very much one of the pros in a Pro-Am entry. Marco Mappelli in the Apt Sportsline Lamborghini. It's Easterland Racing's green and white Audi has Max Hoffer at the wheel. Maximilian Paul driving the slightly older Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini. So that is still an Evo version of the Huracan, but just Evo 1 rather than Evo 2, as the rest of the cars in this race are. And the 55 Hankook tyred and Hankook liveried Porsche being driven by Marco Holzer.
That was 10 minutes, now 11 minutes into the session. They are only going to get 1 flying lap before they are going to come across the line and be presented with huge amounts of traffic. Cars coming out, cold tyres, warming up, whereas these GT3 cars, these SP9 category cars, will be wanting to push on for a second lap and will be warmed up. So that second... this 1 clean lap is the only opportunity they're going to have for a clean lap. The second opportunity could be very, very busy in the early part of the lap. The first car on track, by the way, is the 54, which is Matteo Cairoli. He is now heading up to the foxhole.
The number 1 has just gone through the hats and back. Christopher Haase was the driver that put the number 1 time in this morning, the 8:14, and that was purely down to being out on the track in the same kind of conditions that we're seeing now, relatively clean. There's going to be no other cars, no other classes of cars out there, and this is where you earn your bucks as a pro driver. You are told by the engineers, You are optimized on that first flying lap. That's when your tires are going to give you that optimum run, and you've got to deliver. And delivering around here is even a greater performance than what we see on a normal conventional track. And you know what? It's going to be interesting to see just how quickly he can go. He got a clean lap this morning. He's got a clean lap in front of him. He's got no real traffic ahead of him.
That feeling you get when you're getting an incredible deal. That feeling of value. That's why you shop Ocean State Job Lot. Here, you'll always find a lot more for a lot less.
And he's got quite a gap to the car, the number 27, that's ahead of him, and that is just off my screen. So it's on, it's very much on. It's the Red Bull Lamborghini Huracan, so he could well indeed catch that car.
All cars through Sector 1. Purple sector for Jordan Pepper in the Red Bull team at Lamborghini Huracan. All through Sector 2. Purple sector for Marco Mappelli in the other Lamborghini. That's the non-Red Bull App Sportsline car. Most coming through Sector 3 now, and the purple sector actually has gone to Patrick Niederhauser, who is the car without a time at the moment, the Sport Porsche. So the purples are being shared around as they continue to complete their lap. We've got small sectors, short sectors and long sectors, but it does look as though at the moment we are going to definitely improve on that pole position time. Provisional time 8:14.162 right now.
Niederhauser, very honest with Joe and I, because we asked him straight out who's going to do this first bit of qualifying too, and he said it will be me. He didn't have to be forthcoming as much with that information, but having come off the back of a double victory in the qualifying weekend last month, one was a sort of afternoon going into early evening race, the other one was a more conventional NLS time, actually started at 1 o'clock rather than midday, but 4 hours both on the Saturday night and the Sunday afternoon. And those races served as actually rounds of the NLS this year. They don't always, sometimes they sit entirely separately. It's also served as a means of effectively qualifying for this race, or at least trying to get into that 12 that was selected via very fast sector times generally, rather than qualification laps.
Worth just emphasising, whilst permission for this first 15 minutes is allowed only for these cars that are out on track now, the session continues and times can continue to fall. It is not a case that these 15 minutes are all that matter.
True.
There's just the best opportunity right now to set it. Track conditions for sure will get better as we go later into the evening, but the track will be busier, and almost certainly, as we saw in Q1, there'll be a lot of yellow flags and slow zones to contend with. One slow zone is going to stop you from improving your time, as we at the moment have, 15 pro drivers out on circuit, nobody stuffing it in the wall, nobody creating a yellow flag, and therefore times continuing to tumble. Sector 3 fastest time continue to hold by Niederhauser. Sector 4 is only 10 seconds long, and Bachmann fastest through that one. Sector 5, not everyone's through it yet, but Hasser through that one. So really completely different across the sectors.
He's gone purple in Sector 5 as well as Christopher Hasser. Marco Mappelli, though, he's gone quickest purple in Sector 2 and Sector 6. So they're gonna produce lap times very, very close to one another. They're each robbing time from one another in different parts of this track. Pepper, for instance, he was quickest in Sector 1, but he's bright green all the way through. Already traffic becoming a factor out there.
Well, no, that's an SP9 clearly either making a mistake or deciding that this lap is not going to be better. Because
is that the 54 dynamic car which runs on Pirellis?
Backing out of it.
It is, yeah. Getting out, but right on the racing line at Brunchen, which really wasn't helpful for the car in behind. By the way, the rest of the timing screen is now starting to flood with other classes of car, because we're at 16 minutes past 8. And now all of a sudden the pit lane is open to everybody. If you're wondering where Patrick Niederhauser is on the timing screen, you've got to look all the way down to 133rd, because remember this is a combined session, and that number 16 Porsche didn't set any times earlier in the day because of a suspected drive shaft related issue, which the team have obviously managed to fix now. Patrick Niederhauser about to put a first meaningful time on the board, for the day, full stop.
Leading cars coming onto the Dottingerho now. So that's the gap between the rest of the field, who are all flooding onto the Grand Prix circuit, and our SP9 cars. We are going to start seeing times tumbling and provisional fastest times being set, because the Lamborghini now leads the Porsche. You're right, it was the Matteo Cairoli driven dynamic Porsche that got out of the way, and his 6 to 7 no better than he's managed before. Actually, no, it's still an improvement. So green sectors across the board, and other than that, purple sectors, we're going to see all improved at the end of this lap.
Marco Mappelli into Tiergarten, then Hohenrhein, that little left-hander which links the Nordschleife proper with the Grand Prix track. Normally, if you're on a tourist lap, you would turn right and start a fresh one. But Marco Mappelli's about to cross the line in the 28 and will go top. So fastest of the day with an 8:11.6 for the Italian at the wheel of the apt Sportsline Lamb.
Hey everybody, Walton Goggins here. Starting a business is never easy, but with GoDaddy Aero, that endeavor is about to become a whole lot easier.
Hey man, you got this.
Create a website that looks like you know what you're doing, even if you don't know what you're doing, because you're using a website that developed a tool that knows exactly what it's doing. It helps you design a logo. This is what we came up with. We put it here, we put it everywhere on our website, and we even put it right here. What I'm telling you, from one central command center, you can have all your social media empire operating. You're doing it all, everything, fast. Let's go, Daddy!
Now I'm gonna cut you into itty bitty pieces!
What did you do? Did you kill Haru and steal this house from her?
Lamborghini, Jordan Pepper will back that up with another Lamborghini good time, 0.6 of a second slower, 8:12.2. Chris Haase goes even quicker than the Raging Bulls. So it's an Audi to the top with an 8:10.5. That is much more like it, Joe.
Wow, that is more like it. 4 seconds quicker than he went this morning. And now we're seeing where we should be. And just shows just how classy these drivers are. All of the drivers at the top of those timing screens. They knew they had to deliver on that lap, and they have. It's going to be interesting. There's so many factors now going to come into play with the rest of this session, and you're going to be very, very lucky to get a lap like that again. Very lucky.
Niederhauser into 5th position. Van der Linde improving its time, but staying in 6th. An improvement for the number 7 of Conrad Motorsports Lamborghini. They go into 7th position, but it doesn't look like any more of our SP9s can improve enough to challenge Haase at the head of the times. 3 more come through. HRT into 7th, and who is it? Muller into 10th. So the 2 HRTs running together, actually. Matteo Cairoli, no improvement, stays 12th, and certainly is not qualifying with that. Drudy up to 4th position now.
Even costing you time on the Grand Prix Strecker part of this 24H configuration here at the Nürburgring. That can cost you dearly when you are absolutely optimizing every single braking point, every single turning point. And now that we've got a very crowded racetrack, it's debatable, guys, whether we're going to see that sort of time again. You're going to be looking at the tracker. You're going to be looking at the track as to when you're going to release your car, because you can get past some of the cars a lot easier than perhaps some of the 992 Cup cars that are very quick on the straights, perhaps not as quick through the corners because of a lack of aero. So you're going to have to manage this really well from the pit wall.
Don't forget what we've just seen in those first 15 minutes are the opportunity of 5 cars getting into top qualifying tomorrow. Those 5 cars then: Christopher Haase, Marco Mappelli, Jordan Pepper, Mattia Drudy, and the 5th machine, the number 37 of Malek Bachmann. Niederhauser missing out, Hoffer missing out, Olsen, Van der Linde, the only BMW not getting through into top qualifying.
The number one into the pits, by the way, Hasse coming in the back door, so to speak, having crossed the line. He's jumped out of the car, he's handed over the car now. And into the pits also has come the number 37, the Pro Sport Racing Aston Martin. That's currently 5th with a time there. Its quickest time, 8 minutes 14.6 there. And Niederhauser in, the number 16, finally putting in a representative time in the Shearer Sport Porsche, 8 minutes 15.5. And that car now in the pits for what may be a driver change.
So the shock in all of this is the fact that an SP9 Pro-Am car, admittedly with a very pro driver, has managed to squeak into those top 5 positions as things stand. That's the 37 Pro Sport Racing Aston Martin, which is on the Goodyear tyre, and Marek Bachmann, who's sharing that car with Nico Bastian and Stephen Palette, might have just squeaked a place. And it means that the Scherer Sport Porsche, which is an International GT Challenge entry, is potentially not going to be in the shake-up for top qualifying tomorrow. Also missing out as things stand, the 84 Easterland Racing Team Audi, and the only BMW in the entry. And Calvin van der Linde's pitted. Now, the 2 Lamborghinis have stayed out, thinking it's still relatively quiet, perhaps. Why don't we push for another, even though they're occupying 2nd and 3rd places, and that would get them in? Whereas the only BMW doesn't want more of it at this stage. And have we included the Ferrari into this so far? Yeah, the 45, the only Ferrari in the whole of the entry, is already in, so therefore wasn't eligible for the first 15 minutes. That's the realised Kondo Racing with Rinaldi car. I'm just surprised that Van der Linde, maybe Patrick Niederhauser, they didn't stay out and push on for another lap whilst the track it's not quiet anymore, but it's not very, very busy.
I'm not sure why Jordan Pepperis did that. Maybe he's continuing on to just see what the tyre wear was like after that quick lap, and now he's being held up by traffic in pretty much every area. He's only gone personal best in sector 4. Everywhere else he's gone much slower because he's tripping over the slower class cars everywhere he goes.
Here's a theory though. Tomorrow afternoon you get 2 laps. So isn't it useful to know what the tyre wear is going to be like on the 2nd lap around?
That might be just what they're trying to look for.
But the other thing is, top qualifying is done on full fuel. So you brim it, you have to brim it, and then...
It's not complicated enough, is it? I mean, you know, let's just really complicate it.
That is designed to be as fair as possible because the balance of performance has been worked out. You know, there will be different fuel tank sizes, but if you start everybody on full tanks, it's theoretically a fairer way of doing it. So will they fill that car up? Probably not, because they're looking for a quick time within this 15 minutes. We're now outside that 15 minutes, but the start of this session in that way is not going to be like top qualifying tomorrow.
Jordan Pepper was 13 seconds back the last time through a sector, even if that last sector of 35 seconds was better than he'd previously gone through it. He has had to come through a couple of BMWs and he has had traffic, so 13 seconds slower than he previously managed. That would then massively drop him outside, put him into 17th position overall. Interestingly, the BMW, the only BMW entered into the top class for this running, 7 seconds, over 7 seconds back from Christopher Haas's time. In an Audi, let's not forget, is possibly the oldest GT3 homologated car that we've got, and is pretty much out of customer support. There's a little bit left, but not a lot, and customers are turning their direction elsewhere because there's not that support for the Audi anymore. We have, why have we got a purple sector at the top? Is that a change of driver?
That is a change. No, that's a change. No, that's still the number 1.
At Five Guys, we always hook you up with real ingredients. Always handmade, always fresh. So when your craving calls, get your burger guy on the line. Five Guys, swing by today.
Look at him, there he comes. It's fun! What does he say to Infinity and Beyond?
I think it's gone purple on our timing screen because it's the quickest time still.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's actually an improvement. I think it might be because Winkelhock's gone back across the line. So he did an outlap around the Grand Prix circuit and then completed that on the Grand Prix circuit. And the way that the timing system works, it's flashed it up again. But that's still, for me, the Christopher Haase time. Just because Winkelhock has taken that car over, but it hasn't done an extra lap yet. In fact, its sector 1 time this time around is 7 minutes, which indicates a pit stop in the middle as well.
On board once again with the Red Bull team at Lamborghini that runs in the DTM with Jordan Pepper. It's a beautiful livery. He's now on the Dottingerhoe and easily running past some of the slower traffic. Interestingly, looking at some of the top speed times with Peter McKay earlier on, the GT3 cars are running very similar top speeds to the GT4 cars and even some of the TCR cars. They're within 5 to 10 kilometers an hour of each other. Why? Why is that? Because the GT3 cars run so much more downforce and can run more downforce, meaning more drag, whereas the GT4 cars and the TCR cars really don't have much to play with. They are as they are. And so coming to Lappery along the Dottinger is actually not as easy as you would have first thought for those GT3 spec machines.
The Ovega-driven 64 Mustang has suddenly popped up. I'm not sure it was there initially, but I'll check when that time was set in the 64 Hout Racing Team Mustang. It's still only 8th place, so wouldn't get the Ovega-driven car into the Magic Top 5. So that's Yusuf Ovega sharing with Stippler and Miney and Dennis Olsen. And that car going 8th fastest now in the predominantly blue livery with a little bit of yellow detailing as well. Mühlner Motorsport have 3 cars entered into this year's race. The instantly recognisable sky blue and white livery of the Belgian squad, and one of their cars is now motoring its way into Tiergarten after Antonius Bucher underneath the bridge there. Very, very busy, in fact, for the McLaren, and a BMW trying to overtake it into Tiergarten. Also in that little group is the Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini, which has Maximilian Paul driving it. 10th fastest so far, but that surely won't be an improvement for Max because he's got so much traffic up ahead of him and just hit a wall of rear wings there. Needed to get out of the throttle at the last moment, but some teams are changing drivers as Marcus Winkelhock still trying to wait to see whether he will head on to Hatzenbach, chosen to do another Grand Prix lap though in the Scherer Sport Audi number 1.
It's the top 5 that we're focusing on here, and just outside that top 5 is the number 16, the Patrick Niederhauser car that was didn't produce a lap time. That is their first flying lap there, so they need to get a little bit more speed from the car. They've got a change of driver now at the wheel of the 16, and that is and I've lost him off my sheet. It's Feller. What's Feller's? It's Ricardo Feller. That's now been given the task of getting that car into top qualifying, and we'll just keep an eye on its sector time still out there, just starting the run. But that's where the action is. The action is the top 5 currently on the timing screens. They are the 5 cars that are going to join the already 12 cars that have qualified into top qualifying tomorrow.
So target time then is an 8:14.6. Not much different to the very fastest time we saw in qualifying 1, but the target very much moved then. And of course that target is for those at the moment that sit from 6th position down to 13th. The car in 12th position doesn't care so much about that target because they are already in there, the fastest of those that have pre-qualified into top qualifying, with number 48 of Dan Arrow, which is still yet to allow to be out on circuit. They're still waiting for those last couple of SP9 cars to be allowed to enter the track.
Yeah, so if you're a fan of the Manthey EMA 911 Porsche, or Grello as it's so well known as, the mixture of green and yellow, that car also is not eligible for the session until we get 35 minutes into it, so that's about 6 minutes away. And then there'll be another big entry of cars from the pit lane, which will be all the rest of the SP9s who are legitimately allowed to take part. And then the problem for those that aren't already in, so Patrick or Ricardo Feller in the 16 and downwards, it's going to get even busier out there and perhaps more unlikely to find that window within the traffic to get better timing, and it's going to be so frustrating. However, this time within Q2, and if you don't make it in the time in Q3, shouldn't be wasted, because you can still decide a grid position from 18th down to 27th within the rest of the SP9s. It's just that they'll be gridded in that order that you finish in qualifying 3.
And we've got our first yellow flag, I'm afraid, over at Schwarzenschwanz, just coming on to the Dottinger Ho. It's the 382 machine that is stopped.
Watch the FIFA World Cup 2026 live on Fox with YouTube TV or on Fox One, available with YouTube. Sign up now. Terms apply. Cancel anytime.
Here's a fun one. Guys, pretend like you're holding up the building behind you. Make sure. Yeah. That's
Okay,
great.
now give her phone back.
How do y'all know each other? You friends?
Progressive can't save you from becoming your parents, but we can save you money when you bundle home and auto with us.
Oops, my finger was in it.
And that will be one of the two amazing Toyota Yaris's. I don't know if you've poked your head into that garage, but they are stunning pieces of machines. The Toyota GR Yaris DAT concept cars. Both got two cars. They've both got the same drivers, so two opportunities for all the drivers to participate. And they are amazingly prepared, but unfortunately it looks like one of them is stopped.
Well, they're Toyota Gazoo Rookie Racing. Is running them. And underneath, if you peel back that sticker, it's KCMG. Matt Houseman's team is underneath that sticker. And they are very experienced at going endurance racing, aren't they? So yes, like you said, Ben, very well put together. Now that yellow flag's become a slow zone in that area, just through Schwab-and-Schwanz. And that is towards the end of the lap, just before that section, just before you get onto the Dottinger Ho. And the car that has come to a halt looks like it's off track, so it's off to driver's left, and well, there's nowhere safe. I was about to say it's parked safely. It is, because it's on the grass. However, we'll still be needing recovery for that car if he can't control alt delete and get that thing restarted.
But we're not going to ever get a chance on our broadcast to look inside those cars, but they are so stunningly built and prepared, and there's so much technology. Of course, the bonnet itself can't really package anything more than the engine that's already in there. So they've had to put everything else racing related into the back of the car, and rather than it being beside the driver, which traditionally you see all the electrics kind of right beside the driver for weight, they obviously felt the need to put it at the back because there's so little weight over the rear axle of the car. So a lot of the electrics and all the sort of peripherals have been moved further back.
All the management systems, with all the looms coming off it.
And I think that's to try and settle the rear down on that car.
It could well be, and just to give it a bit more of a balanced weight distribution, and also accessed via the hatchback.
Easy.
So easy to get in there rather than squeezing into the passenger area of the traditional way.
They also are running a Supra as well, so they've got two Yaris's. And there's also an entered Supra which is equally beautifully prepared. That's the 110 machine. That does have a different set of drivers.
Yeah, but as you've mentioned, probably interesting that it's an identical quartet, both in the 109 Yaris and the 382, which is the one we're concerned about at the moment. Daisuke Toyoda is at the wheel of 382, joined by Maurizio Hiroka Ishiura and Kazuya Oshima, and they're going to be featuring in both of those cars. I suppose it's useful to know precisely how a Toyota GR Yaris handles.
And Johnny, do you know who Maurizio is?
Go on.
Mr. Toyota himself, the president of the company.
No way.
Aoki. I can't say it now. Akio Toyoda.
Okay.
Yeah. And who is a massive motorsport fan.
He would have raced here before, sure.
I would have thought so, yeah.
I think he has, yeah.
Over several years.
Yeah,
well,
that's
that gives you just an indication of how important this race is.
Well, that gives you an indication of how passionate the guy at the top is, and that's why we see Toyota Gazoo Rookie Racing at the Nürburgring 24 hours.
I don't know who Daisuke is, though, whether it's a son or a brother. But he is the least professional of those of that lineup. The other two are Super Formula drivers.
Or another company board member.
Or with the same name. Yeah.
But Super Formula drivers normally come in here to race in a Toyota Yaris.
Yeah, I know.
I just love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic Nürburgring 24 hours, isn't it?
Not as much downforce.
Possibly not.
Yeah, not as much grip through the corner.
I mean, there are some real nuggets further down in the entry list. I don't know whether you've spotted yet in a TCR car, Nathaniel Berton, who's a regular racer in LMP2. 2 years ago, he was in the Glickenhaus at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And the Frenchman, who is certainly far more at home behind the wheel of a Le Mans type prototype, now in TCR land. And he's certainly not the first to sample a hatchback style car with heritage elsewhere at Le Mans. I remember Matthias Besch turning up in a Renault Clio many years ago. It's just like, what? But they don't care, because if it's a racing car and they can work out where the grip is, where to unleash the power.
They undoubtedly take the racing line with their supermarket trolley through the cold meats and into the fruit and veg.
Yeah, but we all do that.
Need to shave a bit of time through there.
In the TCR alternative fuel category, we've got Sebastian Vettel's brother Fabien, who is a regular here. We've got an all-female car by WNS Racing, which includes Fabian Vulvend, who's probably the most famous of those drivers, although you may have heard of Kari Schreiner as well. And Johan Kristoffersen, I bumped into in one of the garages, the only, seven-time world rallycross champion and a three-time winner of the TCR World Championship back in the day when it existed, including a race here in a TCR car when TCR was a support race to the 24 hours. So very much looking forward to racing there. Only problem is sharing a garage with Tom Coronel. And he said it's so distracting, as you can imagine.
Tom is a top guy.
Well, we happened to bump into Tom Coronel yesterday.
I can't tell you what he said to me when he saw me.
He made a beeline for Adam Christodoulou, who we were chatting to at the time, totally ignored Joe and I. And then we went, oi, what about us? And then he realised, flung his arms round us and said various expletives.
Yes.
Which is generally the way that Coronel rocks, isn't it?
It's a traditional Dutch greeting.
Yeah.
Of course.
So some good laps coming from further down the order, including the 502 rear-wheel drive GT Tyre Motorsport BMW. That is a pretty major change in VT2 for 2025, in that they've grouped the four-wheel drive cars in with the front-wheel drive VT2s, when previously they were with the Heckentriebs, or rear-wheel drive cars. So VT2 front and four-wheel, and now the rear-wheel drive cars are on their own, if you like. So got lots of BMWs in the Hecker class, 330i's.
I'm Premium Wireless for $15 a month at Mint Mobile. When I Premium Wireless for $15 a month, I think, why not Premium Wireless for $15 a month? Let's be honest, Premium Wireless for $15 a month, am I right? Let's just stop having AI write these, okay, guys?
What else have we got? Another 330i. In fact, it's predominantly those cars. There's a 328i BMW as well, and a Toyota Supra from Nordique Racing for the number 520. Cup 2 is going to be incredible at the start of the race, because Cup 2 always leads the second group of cars from the off at 4 o'clock. Remember, the field is so big this year, although we have lost one or two. On the latest count, it's 135 that started the session earlier in the day, but still separated into three different groups. The first group will have all the SP9s in and possibly a few other cars. Then the Cup 2 start in the front of Group 2. Group 3 is just come one, come all. It's a mishmash of all kinds of categories, with generally the Subaru Technica International WRX car starting right at the front. Rover Racing BMW now back into pit lane. They're going to be pretty disappointed. 9th fastest so far, and are they going to find the necessary gaps to break into that top 5 in the remaining time in this session?
Well, at the moment, no, because we've still got that code 60 to recover the Toyota. It is the only area where we have a code 60. We do have a yellow flag at Flansgarten. Is that a different incident then? No, that is earlier. That's introducing you. So you'll have a yellow flag to cover the entrance to the slow zone, and then you'll have the slow zone. That's all now clear. So back to a green flag circuit, and opportunity therefore, if you are in the middle of a lap where you're improving, to continue to improve.
Question is, now, you know, the engineers will be having to try and pick little gaps here and there as to when is best to release their car. And if they don't find a gap at the first time of asking, you've always got the option of going around the Grand Prix circuit. But it's like, I don't know, it's like a pinball machine almost. Just trying to find that whirly thing.
Just look at the tracker,
and you'll miss it.
Just look at the tracker, Johnny, and and it's not just about putting your car out, of getting your car out of the pits into a gap, because that gap's going to disappear. It's monitoring which cars are going to be ahead of you, whereabouts you're going to, and that you might as well just put a lottery ticket on, because it's going to be like rolling the dice, you know. At the moment, the cutoff is at Emirates 14.6. That's Nico Bastian in the Pro Sport Aston Martin that holds that covetous 5th place, and the final qualifier into top qualifying tomorrow night. Just outside of that remains the 16. It's the Shearer Sport Porsche still. Emirates 15.5. So that's a full second that car's got to find, and that car's out there.
It doesn't necessarily matter for the top qualifying, but I do think we're going to see an improvement here from the number 14 machine, which is setting green sectors throughout its first lap. Now, this is a car that has been held back for the first 35 minutes, so the Mercedes team Bilstein Get Speed machine is now out on track with Maro Engel aboard, I believe, and we are seeing green sectors for quite a few of those IGTC cars and those pre-qualified SB6s, SB9s. So they are going to start getting themselves back into the mix of those cars that we saw setting times earlier. Doesn't matter, because all those times will be reset come tomorrow morning. But interesting that even if we do have all the cars on circuit now, there is still the ability to do some improving.
And there's still a bit of heat in that sun, and there's areas of this track that's still in full sunshine, so that hasn't begun. They have not begun to cool down. The track temperature is still high, so the car's performance could still be a little bit quicker when the sun drops a little bit lower. It's usually just on that sun hitting the horizon. The air gets cooler, the track gets cooler. There's a lot of this track, especially out there on the Nordschleife, that's shrouded in shade because of the trees and the proximity of the trees to the track edge. So we are seeing a fundamental reduction in track temperature. I wish I had a tyre engineer in front of me who could tell me exactly what that was.
Track temperature?
Yeah, have you got that?
Standby caller.
Okay. It's going to continue to, I'm not going to say plummet, because we've had a very, very hot day. It's not going to plummet, it's going to slowly cool down. It's going to slowly dissipate that heat. There's nothing like tarmac that retain heat. It's quite an insulator. But we are going to see, I think, improvements pretty much all of our SB9 runners are going to go quicker.
84 Easterland Audi taking plenty of curb through Hatzenbach on its previous lap around. This car then not currently in the top 5 in this session, it's 7th. Simon Riker is at the wheel at the moment. So this is a standard SP9 lineup. It's not Pro-Am or Am. You've got Christian Kleen in this car, Norbert Siedler, Max Hoffer and Simon Riker. So an all-Austrian lineup for the Austrian crew, and a very smart paint job indeed. Almost bringing back memories of the previous race winners of this event, which was the team with Lant in the name, and I can't remember the rest of it now. My mind's gone blank, but stick with.
Now we got to go help people customize and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Maybe where's the golf cart? There it is. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
feeling you get when you're getting an incredible deal. When you're spending less and getting more. When every aisle offers quality items at the best prices. That feeling of value. That's why you shop Ocean State Job Lot. Shop your local Ocean State Job Lot for all the things you need. Here, you'll always find a lot more for a lot less.
With me, and I'll try and recall that. Meanwhile, Mark Basseng in his 830 Hyundai, the Hyundai Elantra MTCR, heading down the hill towards the lowest part of the circuit, which is a secondary point where you can enter through the tourist light, the tourist laps rather, so bright shite at the bottom of the hill, snaking its way. A lot of these corners for me though, Joe, on the sim at least, look similar to others, and I think, oh, I'm there now, and still you haven't quite reached the Tankstelle at the bottom of the hill in this valley.
No, and there's a lot of off-camber corners in this section that Mark Basseng is on at the moment, and then you've got that flat-out run out of here. Up the hill, it seems to just sap the motor towards Bergwerk through the fast sweeping left, and then the right-hander of Bergwerk. Heavy braking here and down changing through Bergwerk, the right-hander. That's the area where Niki Lauda had that infamous accident in the 1976 German Grand Prix. And then he's got that run-up, hasn't he, from Bergwerk all the way up that flat-out stretch towards Uracht, through Kesselchen, Klostertal, towards the carousel, of course, where he will take all the speed off. But it just feels like the uphill section, even in the GT3 car, just saps the power. You can hear your revs dying off as the incline takes all of that punch and that power to get you up the hill.
Now, didn't Nico Menzel a few moments ago have a little moment coming out of Adenauer Forst?
It was a little nudge.
Was it?
With another Porsche ahead. Just exiting a corner, the one ahead didn't quite accelerate as he expected, and there was a little knock on the door to say, let me past.
You were right, it is his son, Toyota's son. So,
Toyota.
Suzuki, Toyota.
Yeah.
So Daisuke, who's
son.
in the car and stranded out on the racetrack, is the son of Akio.
Yeah.
Excellent. And the Easterland Audi is reminding me of the Lant Motorsport car that has gone so well in the past, because that's often green and white, although Lant not entering a car this year. And Audis, well, there's a reasonable amount of them, 4 in total within the GT3 category. They're not the most numerous, though. We've actually got as many as 7 Porsches from all sorts of different teams. 2 from Falcon Motorsport, remember. 4 Aston Martins in the SP9 category. 3 Mercedes AMGs who have already qualified. So all 3 Mercs are already into top qualifying for tomorrow afternoon. There are 4 different Lamborghinis. One of them is an SP9 AM entry, though, from Renazzo Motorsport team. 4 Audis. The Scherer car, the Jutta car, which is Pro-Am, the Equipe Vitesse, which is AM, and Easterland, a full Pro lineup, as I've mentioned. Just the 1 Ferrari, just the 1 BMW, and then those 3 Ford Mustangs making their debut for HRT.
Eng, in the end, did not improve his lap time. 4 seconds off the 8:20 that he's managed in the previous session. We are still waiting to see the 48 finish their lap, and the 33 that we rode on board with. The 33 now comes across the line, and there's no improvement there.
Oh, in the fence somewhere, the 945 Porsche Cayman. That shot a little bit too tight at the moment for us to identify fully where it's happened. It's Hatzenbach, and this is the other Renazzo Motorsport team Cup 3 Porsche. So it's in a very similar livery to the 786 Lamborghini Huracan, and they're running another AM lineup. So is there some fluid down in Hatzenbach? It was in behind the BMW and has lost the car and then clanged into the barrier, but also where the tyres start as well. So it's done quite a bit of damage to the front of the 945 car early on in the Nordschleife lap. So it's close at the wheel of this Cayman, an all Cayman class, remember, Cup 3, with a mixture of pro and AM lineups, but I would imagine we've got certainly a yellow flag and maybe going into a speed restricted area.
Where was that, Johnny?
Hatson back. A little bit.
Nothing yet. Okay. Nothing yet appearing.
Unless he's been able to drive away from that, and I'd be surprised if the Porsche makes it that far. But it was an unusual incident. I just wonder whether there was a line of fluid in behind that BMW. It's auto close in the 945 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport, to give it its full name. There's actually a Japanese driver in that lineup as well, in Koichi Okumura.
So bad news. The car won't start. Don't worry, I'll call my guy. So good news.
When you're craving calls, get your burger guy on the line. Five Guys.
Down in ninth fastest of the Cup 3s so far. But my timing screen combines the pros and the AM cars rather than splitting them apart.
So all of those cars that were prevented from being out on circuit for the first 35 minutes, they all went and tried a lap. We only saw one improvement, and that was from the Kondo Racing Ferrari, the number 45 machine. That did manage to improve at the hands of Thomas Neubauer, up to 15th position overall. So just already a car that's qualified, so it's not a massive significance. But Kelvin van der Linde on a lap now. He's still not going to improve. He's 12 seconds off the fastest lap time. That's 5 seconds off his best lap time. But possibilities of green sectors throughout the 9-sector lap. So there is still time to be had for some of those that didn't completely maximise their first half an hour.
So over the line will come Kelvin van der Linde in the 98 Rover Racing BMW, as you say, about 6 or 7 seconds off in the only Bavarian GT3 car here. There's loads of BMWs in all the other categories, of course.
Oh yes, and just to answer your question earlier on, in qualifying one, you noticed that the Rover Racing machine was entered under a different name. Let me get my notes out, because Rover is an oil manufacturer, right? And therefore it's the sponsor of the car. We've always assumed that that's therefore a team, but actually it's not run, it's not a team as such. It is run by Motorsport Competence Group AG, who have been around for about 20 odd years. They're the team behind the brand. Right. The brand Rover Racing, but actually the team, Motorsport Competence Group, I'm not sure they've ever entered a car under that name, but it is their entrance name.
Yes. Although interestingly, now the latest entry list has come out, they're back to Rover Racing again. So yeah, cover that up, push the main name under the bed, and everyone will recognise.
There's lots of teams underneath the team name that we, if it came clean and say, take like a Scooby-Doo cartoon, they pull the mask off and it's, aha! It's really you. There's lots, and it's really hard to keep a tab on.
Well, remember 2 years ago when Fricadelli took that incredible win for what was at the time a new Ferrari 296. There were an awful lot of Rinaldi guys running that car on behalf of Fricadelli, with their limited experience with Ferraris, whereas Rinaldi, who are here this year as well with the 45 realised car, they're experts. They sound very Italian, Rinaldi, but they're actually German, and probably choosing a Italian-sounding name for obvious reasons.
I think Grello might get an improvement on the time here. We're on board with Kevin Estre. It's a purple sector right in the middle of the lap. That's the short sector 4 of just 10 seconds long. That's the purple. The early part of the lap, good. There are yellow flags and slow zones, but I think they're behind him on the lap. Estre, again, another car that is already qualified, sits down in 21st position with a time of 2:23.7 from earlier on, and he's now on the Dottinger hose, so avoiding all the slow zones and yellow flags behind. We should see an improvement, but he's still 5 seconds off the ultimate pace that we've seen in qualifying so far. That shows just how hard this is to get those lap times when you don't have a clean track.
have we mentioned the slow zone out of Arenberg up through the Foxhole, or down the hill through the Foxhole towards Ardnar Forst? Slow zone coming in through the Foxhole, which is those sweeps, those left and right sweeps where you just straight line between the curbs. It slows down at the bottom of the hill before it starts climbing back up, and I'm not quite sure. We've got the number 945 showing static.
Yeah, so
in that area. Right. So that has made. So we thought that was it. We thought that was it.
I'm pretty sure he crashed at
Hatzenbach. Yeah.
And he's carried on around.
He's carried on and got as far as the Foxhole down the hill.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'd like to just describe that whole incident to you again and be absolutely sure it wasn't further around, but it did look initially for Otto Close as if that car was semi-drivable. You know, it might have compromised the wheel arches on the right-hand side because he clanged into the barrier, but then actually caught the very end of the tyre wall where it begins, and that's a softer landing than it might have been had it been concrete or more Armco barrier. So it's limped its way that far around, but might now have compromised its tyres perhaps on the right-hand side.
Kevin Estre doing Kevin Estre things, improves his lap time and goes up to 6th fastest on a very busy track, just 4.7 seconds off the fastest lap time, and it puts the Manthey Porsche number 911 up into 6th spot. Again, these times do get white, but if you are a fan and watching IGTC, the Intercontinental GT World Challenge, he is now the fastest in that category. Porsche represented with 7 cars in IGTC, BMW obviously just the one, so a massive advantage that Porsche have, and they are at the moment 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Not bad.
He's gone 6th. All that means with regards to tomorrow night's top qualifying, he's pushed the first non-qualifier for that session down to 7th.
Yeah.
It's not really gonna be a factor. The number 16 Porsche that needs to go quicker he's still chasing at 8 minutes 14.3, and it's a full second that he needs to find.
And it doesn't even affect the order in which they run in that top qualifying session, because that's drawn by lot.
Yeah.
So one would assume perhaps that if you went faster, that would give you a better running position, but actually that's not the case. It's completely random, the running order of top qualifying.
Isn't that what they do in rallying?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
qualifying and then you reverse it. Yeah. Well, actually, in rallying it's a bit silly because they do a qualifying stage, and that then gives you a running order for the draw.
Life is unpredictable. Good thing your car has the pep to keep up. When you partner with the car care veterans at Pep Boys, you know what you'll get. Experienced technicians, expert service, and a free Pep Check car inspection. From routine maintenance to major repairs, we're here to keep you moving. Open 7 days a week because you've got more important duties. Pep Boys, America's car care veterans. At your service since 1921.
Cole's mom, how do you keep your cool? 2 words, Carly. Tech gear. Everyone's wearing it.
Also 2 words? Red card.
He talks a big game, yet misses so much of it.
I heard that.
Cole's mom 1, ref 0.
Of where you want to start, and then you draw your starting position.
Right, so it's still a bit of a lottery then.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, no, not really, because if you go first, then you have the opportunity to pick the starting first. Right. And then you decide whether if you're on gravel, you're starting last, or if you're on tarmac, you're starting first. So you have more control.
Right. We digress.
Is there a Grello door mirror now sitting on the road just off the Yokohama S, or perhaps from another yellow car? It might be from a Renazzo Lamborghini, potentially, but bright yellow.
Carbon fibre as well, so it costs a lot. Get that back to the team as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Might only need a new glass.
So that might indicate that it is an SP9 car that's lost a door mirror, and if Kevin Estre's willing to, well, I was going to say he's willing to push, certainly he is, but having set that time, which puts him theoretically 6th in this session with an 8:15.3, was he that eager to push again at the start of a Grand Prix lap that ultimately ended in the pit lane, because the Frenchman's now there and back with the team. Grello are not in a luxurious position compared to others. They're having to share a garage as well. A garage not shared with the Rover guys, but Rover, well, are doing a lot of work now to the front of this car.
Yeah, that's not just a bit of a service for this session.
Is that a big setup change, perhaps, that's going on there?
We are seeing that could well be, but we're not seeing any kind of tracking gear or any laser tracking gear out there, or any corner weights, any scales to weigh the car.
Not yet, but the bumper's off.
Not yet, yeah.
The bonnet's off. The wings are off. All the attention's on the front end. Looks like they're playing around with the steering arms and suspension arms.
And whether he's damaged something.
Well, you do ride the curbs well here, don't you?
They're not replacing the nose. They've taken all the front bumper off, and the first job was to actually start cleaning it again.
Yeah, so giving it access then to the suspension components of the front end.
It's got to, the front bumper's got to come off. So while it's off, you might as well clean out all that ducting. That affects the airflow to your radiators and your oil coolers. So you're going to take the opportunity while you're off, that is off, to do something else. You're going to take the opportunity to completely service that front end as well.
Joe, you've seen racing drivers talk without being able to hear what they're saying. Calvin van der Linde there in a slow-mo describing what happened.
Bit of a loose moment, I think, is what I got from that.
Down the hill,
yeah,
it compressed,
yeah,
turned in,
swivels his shoulders, outlining. He got a bit sideways. Kelvin's quite a good driver when the car's sideways, though, I found.
News on the 97 machine. Do you remember that was on fire at the very start of qualifying 1? They've taken that car back to the factory, wherever their factory is, and they will be working on it from home and dismantling it and bringing it back for Q3. That's the idea. So obviously relatively serious. They thought it might be an engine failure. They had an engine for the GT3 997 car here, but presumably if the team is relatively local, they prefer to go to the workshop and do the work there.
That SP7 car was initially entered under one of the driver names, Julien Ria, but it now doesn't have a driver, or doesn't have a team name at all. Julien Ria, Valentin Lachenmeyer, Mark Trompeter and Ralph Charles are its 4 drivers, and Julien was at the wheel when maybe that brake was snatching and caused the fire, or perhaps they are concerned about whether the fire has then done some damage to the flat 6 that sits at the rear of one of the older Carrera Cup 1 make cars.
You were spot on with your identification of where on the track the 945 Porsche 718 came and went off, Johnny. Its issues started at the Hatzenbach. Tried to continue with suspension damage and got as far as the bottom of the foxhole. So you were spot on with your track identification this early in the week.
All these years of doing NLS races, you see,
paid off. Look how useful in life that is.
I'm not sure necessarily. We wouldn't really want
we're fond of you.
If a pub quiz has an NLS section to it, then get me there, because I've got a couple of class.
It'll be a pub around here, probably tomorrow night, won't it?
There's an idea.
There'll be a pub in Adenau that will be doing a pub quiz about Nürburgring. Get us down there.
We're at the top of the hour, gentlemen. We've had, have we had a full hour of running, or just a few seconds off?
If you count the opening 15 minutes, it was for the select few, then yes.
Yeah, full hour. So let's have a quick rundown of our class leaders, the fastest in class. So we know all about SP9 and the SP9 Pro-Am, which is the number 48 Black Falcon team. They are quickest in SP9 Pro-Am. The SP9 Pro class being led by the 33 Falcon Motorsports entry. Cup 2 is being led by the number 948, the 48 Lodge Motorsport by Black Falcon. Max Cruz Racing, the 644, currently fastest in AT2. SP Pro, that's the number 347 Nordique Racing. Door Motorsport, the number 59 in SP8T, that's the quickest in that class. The quickest in AT3 is the number 19 Max Cruz Racing entry, the number 19. SP4T, that's the T for Turbo. The Subaru Technica International Car 88, that currently is quickest there. It's the Hyundai Motorsport Target Competition, number 830. They are quickest in the TCR class. And then in Cup 3, we've got the 959 numbered SRS Team Sold Rensport. SP10 sees the 175, the Pro Sport racing car. SP7 is the number 70 Black Falcon team. Still in an entry, Toyota Gazoo Rookie Racing, the number 109, is currently leading SPT2. SP2T. SP3T is the number 303 Hyundai Motorsport Target competition entry. BMW M240Z 24i is 658. No team name there, just the team number, and it's currently being driven by Yukison. And then another entry without a team name being driven by a driver by the name of Kupen. That's car 414 leading V6. And the final of the class leaders is the number 520, the Nordic Racing. That is the current leader, or fastest I should say, in VT2 Hector.
Ricardo Feller absolutely flat out now down the Dottinger Hoor in his number 16 Sport PHX Porsche.
That challenge he's making on getting into top qualifying was completely destroyed at the Vauxhall with that slow zone. Now he needs to build up pace and optimise this next lap, because time, dare I say it, time's running out. We're inside the final 2.5.
We are green though, and we are getting very close to that golden hour, aren't we? Before the light starts to fade. I'm always amazed at how fast people drive in twilight and in those early sort of night hours, even if it's very hard to see. Somehow, because they just know how to get round this circuit almost blindfolded, they are still able to set great lap times, and there is, whilst it stays green, time to do it. We've nearly had, the stats say that we've had 6 minutes of code 60 and 1 minute of yellow and 53 minutes of green. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but that's what my stat computer is saying.
Maro Engel now driving the number 14 Mercedes. So this is the entry from Get Speed. They're down in 17th position, but as I already mentioned, all three of the AMG GT3s have pre-qualified. Engel through Flugplatz, Kittelbacher Hoor, and now on towards the very fast left-hander at Schwedenkreuz. Arenberg is the hardest stop into the right-hander, and then underneath the bridge. Beautiful scene right in front of him then for the Bilstein liveried Mercedes that thunders its way out of Arenberg and down into the foxhole. You can watch from that bridge. There's a sort of semi-public road there. It's more of a dirt track which goes across the racetrack. And then just, if you get up on your tiptoes, see them disappear, thunder their way downhill en route to Adenauer Forst.
It is so stunning, isn't it? This time of night, in this area of the world, whether you're at Spa or the Nürburgring, this area is just stunning. And let's not forget, Spa is only around an hour's drive away from here. The low sun of this evening, it's not necessarily going to be compatible with being able to see for these drivers when it's in their eyes, but it is beautiful for photos and images.
The Ardennes is part of the same forest. The Eiffel Forest is part of the Ardennes forest. The only thing that differentiates is the German-Belgian border, isn't it? So one massive trees.
A lovely area to visit, whether you're motor racing at the Nürburgring 24 hours. I hope there are fans that are doing both. Like literally going from here, rolling over to Spa for next weekend. There are, we think, 7 drivers that are doing both. Interestingly, there is one driver that I've been told who is doing 4 24 hours in succession, because Mattia Drudi is taking part in the Fun Cup race at Spa the weekend after.
There could well be a few of that.
Punishment, isn't he?
Yeah, I ran Maxime Martin for a Belgian team back in the day. And
in Fun Cup.
In Fun Cup, Christa Dula was in the team that Trustwell and I were part of. There was another superstar as well.
The thing is, they're all built by WRT, so there's a link between professional WRT BMW drivers and the Fun Cup. And, you know, I fancy a bit of that on my weekend off. Vincent Boss will find you a seat.
Slipstreamer, that one. Slipstreamer.
Yeah, that's 160 cars around a 7-kilometre circuit. This is 135, it seems. Around a circuit similar, 4 times the size. Similar. Double the size of Le Mans.
Maro Engel now showing green sector times in the first 5, and a purple sector time shines brightly out at sector 6. He has got 3 more sectors to complete the lap in the number 14.
Well, he's got a Cayman that he's got slightly caught behind there, was able to navigates it with not too much of a problem. Doesn't look like there's a huge amount of traffic in front of him to contend with for the end of the lap, but there's a lot of greens now coming onto our screens as the circuit goes back to fully green flag racing, and an opportunity, as we said, the golden hour. This is it. This is the time to improve those times.
It's also the time that the visibility when you're heading into the sun disappears completely.
True.
Especially if you're catching flies. And Maro Engel now for the Mercedes AMG team get speed. They are currently way down the order. They haven't really shown 17th place overall.
What does he do here? He's got 3 cars, 3 wide on the Dottingerhoe, all pretty much travelling around the same speed. And as we said earlier, the GT3 car not that much faster in a straight line than many of the other category cars. So we're actually looking at a Ford there.
Well, that's Arjun Maini, who's just a bit further up the road than Maro Engel.
But he's not closing in at all on those 3 ahead.
Didn't seem to be. And now he's got a real problem, because in the braking area, this is where the Mustang makes up so much ground. But when does he hit the throttle? Because he's going to have to go left of one of these BMWs. Remember, slightly compromised on the main straight anyway, because a section of it is coned off, and that's the bit where you can return on the Grand Prix track. So 64 over the line, Arjun Maini, and God, he was pretty close to improving, you know. He was just about a second off in the end, and that was probably the delay rather that he suffered in Tiergarten.
And Engel being held up for the second time that I can see in this lap. It didn't really cost him any time in the previous sectors. I'll be amazed if it's not going to cost him any time in sector 7 there. He's got another slower car to get through. They're at the Kleiner Carousel as far as I can make it. Yeah, Kleiner Carousel just out of there now and heading towards the final stages of the lap, out towards Galgengolf. The right-hander onto the Dottingerhoe. I forgot that name for a second.
Good knowledge.
Here he comes onto the Dottingerhoe, fastest part of the track.
And 11 seconds gone. 11 seconds off the fastest time.
Yeah, lost it in sector 7.
Where is that sector? He's just off our...
Peter McKay sent us a lovely screenshot of the sector on the...
Yeah, so he did a 2...
Sector 7 is from the...
It's a big one.
Rise up towards the carousel all the way to the entrance onto the Dottingerhoe.
He did a 2:31, and the fastest through there's a 2:25. So he did lose a big chunk of time behind those cars that we saw. Now to the end of the lap, and maybe still an improvement. Engel's down in 17th position, 9.5 off the fastest time, so could still improve. Let's see. No.
He was already at 8:17 by the time he was snaking his way through Tiergarten and Hohenreich.
We perhaps should add that it's irrelevant to qualifying for top qualifying.
Yeah.
Because the number 14 is already in. We just got a bit excited seeing all those green and purple sectors.
True. The other thing that I just noted is that they've got a new fastest lap in SP10, which is for the GT4 cars. Door Motorsports 169 Aston, being driven by Sven Schadler, is now top. Now, can you remember back to when you did the update on the hour, Joe?
Yeah.
Where the 169 was the quickest GT4 SP10 car, or is that a new name at the top of the chart? It was 175, wasn't it? But I've got 169 now, fastest.
Well, that might not have updated, Johnny.
Fine. Well, Sven Schadler, Door Motorsport, now quickest in SP10. And remember, there's no shootout for the other categories. It's only GT3/SP9 that will have the top qualifying session. Can be a mixture of Pro and Pro-Am cars, and you can even get in with an AM lineup as well if your Pro within the AMs is quick enough. From what I've read, if an AM gets in there, it'll kind of be treated like a Pro-Am car just for that session. It makes no odds, really. And the thing is, it's going to be a shake-up in terms of the grid, because you wouldn't expect an AM car to be able to perform, let's say, in the top 10 throughout the race, but it will have an opportunity potentially to start from 10th position if the qualifying time is good enough.
Now, mate. It's been listening to you.
So you've refreshed, and 169 is now the quickest SP10.
Yeah, the Door Motorsport car as quick as an SP10.
News on the Toyota GR Supra, which is the rookie racing entered machine, the 110. They were found to be speeding under a code 60, and we spoke in qualifying 1 just how seriously race officials take any discretions under yellow flag and code 60. They will have to start from the back of their group. So regardless of what they do in qualifying, they're put to the back of their group. They are in which class? I can't remember now. The 110. But either way, whatever they do qualifying-wise, it doesn't matter.
SP2T, the 2 Yaris, but I don't know. Have you got a list of where
which
those
groups?
Yeah,
of course I have, Johnny.
It's on this bit of paper over here, isn't it, Ben? I'm going to guess they're in the 3rd group.
So
because
there's something last. Yeah.
Yeah, stone last. But it's going to be a fun time for all of its 4 drivers to work their way through the order. There's only one direction you can go in, from the back of the grid, I suppose. Just ask Kevin Estre from Le Mans last weekend. Meanwhile, a couple of the Schnitzelalm Mercedes being run from the same garage, and I popped my head into the SR Motorsport by Schnitzelalm crew to ask precisely what Schnitzelalm is. My suspicions were that it was a hotel or a restaurant, and indeed it is a restaurant in the Hinterland area of Germany. As Mirko Bortolotti watches on, he's again behind the wheel of a Lamborghini, keeping an eye on the 27 and the 28 cars within this session. He drives the 27 Red Bull Team Apt machine.
Well, Lamborghini had this kind of issue, didn't they, at the end of last year, whereby they had contracted all these drivers to be WEC and IMSA drivers, and then suddenly all their programs were pulled from WEC and the hypercar program, but the drivers are still there, so they've had to use them, and it does mean you see the likes of Marco Bortolotti, Marco Napelli popping up. We had Eduardo Mortara in an SRO GT World Challenge Asia race in a Lamborghini, thanks to Lamborghini. It's incredible. They've got this capacity of spare drivers just to be throwing at it, and that's what Bortolotti is part of, and therefore, with that, part of their DTM squad.
It's great for us, because, you know, you tune into a fairly standard race meeting, I suppose, where you don't necessarily expect those stars to be thrown at a race, but as you say, otherwise they'd just be sitting on a simulator, maybe in the Lamborghini cafeteria, playing pool, waiting for their next chance.
That is what they do when they're not. Yeah, they're all just staying. A bit like Emirates air hostesses, they have to stay in one building and they only get released when they go racing.
Yeah. And the Lamborghinis sit outside in this garage with the doors open, ready. And as soon as the phone rings, right, we're off.
Like Fun and Sam.
That's what I'm picturing. I don't know what Bortolotti means, but in my mind it's something to do with the emergency services. Anyway, we'll move on. Very busy for that run out of the Vidal chicane and into Sabine Schmidt's curve, including for one of the Aston Martins, which is, by the look of things, an SP9 car. Could have been a GT4, I suppose. Grello briefly back on the racetrack, and that was an 8:22.6 last time around for Kevin Estre, who's now looped around the Grand Prix circuit and straight into pit lane. So will Estre give anybody else a go in that car tonight? Bearing in mind, feels like Patrick Pilet's had quite a late call-up to be piloting that car with Thomas Preining and Ayanchin Guven. But Patrick Pilet and Kevin Estre were paired up for the qualification races. It was a double header last month, a Saturday race and a Sunday race, and Pilet joining up with his fellow Frenchman. We were kind of thinking, is that an idea to use him in the 24 hours, even though his name wasn't on any of the cars at that stage? And now he's been very greedy because he's in the 911 and the 16 Scherer car.
I know there's 2 hours and 15 minutes of this session left, which feels like a long time and plenty of time to just cycle those drivers through the Hyundai Porsche, the 911. However, 2 hours at the Nürburgring disappears very quickly when you're cycling your drivers through, and they're on the cusp really of having enough time to cycle another 3 drivers through when you consider that how long Estre's been in the car.
Danny Yukadeya's just been having a go in the number 27 Lamborghini. It's entered the pit lane, so is there a suggestion that Bortolotti might not be too far away from taking over. He was standing at the front of the garage, but the race suit was off to his waist. We have had Jordan Pepper in that car. If you're just joining us, part of this session is to identify 5 cars that will be eligible to step forward into top qualifying tomorrow afternoon on lap speed. And very early on in the session, on the first flying laps, we might have already established those 5 cars. The number 1 Audi of Scherer Sport, the 27 and the 28 Lamborghinis of the Apt racing team. One's called Apt Sportsline, the other one is Red Bull Team Apt, with the dark blue of Red Bull, making that a very smart livery. And then 2 Aston Martins, one from Trinity Solutions, brackets Malkenhorst Motorsport, and one from Pro Sport Racing. That's more of the surprise entry at the moment, because that's a Pro-Am car driven very well by Marek Bachmann.
And for all of the other classes, at the end of this session, we'll have a provisional grid, because tomorrow we've got qualifying 3, where everybody can have a go at improving their grid position, their start time for the race on Saturday. So provisional grid being formed this evening. However, still another qualifying session for all of our other classes to come tomorrow as well.
Just a few notes on the circuit based off what has happened since last year. There has actually been a few little changes and tweaks in certain areas where they have decided to resurface. So Adnau Forst is now a different tarmac to last year. The big change was a curb change there into last year's race, a curb that grew so that you could no longer ride it, whereas you could before. There's also been resurfacing at Brunchen, which has raised the tarmac level up, which has allowed you to get onto curbs that you previously couldn't. The curb hasn't changed, but the tarmac has got higher. And finally, Flansgarten 1 has been resurfaced, but 2 has not. So you now have a change of tarmac between Flansgarten 1 and 2, which apparently, according to some of the drivers, is a little unsettling, because you now really do have 2 different grip types in effectively one corner.
Well, Flansgarten is where the cars take off.
Yes, exactly.
That
so there's
classic.
third.
Yeah, so are you taking off from new asphalt and landing on the older stuff?
I need to have a look to see where 1 and 2 is, but possibly.
That's slightly concerning in that, you're airborne, and then as you land...
That's a good point.
You've got to try and slow the car, settle the car from... I mean, you might all of a sudden recognise that asphalt from years ago, so that's actually maybe where you're more...
Hello, friend.
Well, hello.
You're
I'm
still
much more at home with this stuff.
Well, you're still going to just... If that is the case, and you're taking off from one surface and landing on the next, you're not really going to feel it. It's just how that surface feels when you need to use the brake. So you're not really. It's kind of an irrelevance to a point that the surface you've just lunged from is different to the one that you're going to need to brake on. So you're just going to know that you need to brake at a certain point and feel the grip through that part of the track. Whether it's a new tarmac, it's kind of like out of the. But it's a good point actually. I think it might have had a different influence if it was perhaps going to be a wet race, because the water on tarmac or on different textures does have an effect on how the wet tyre works.